Certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for?
Fellas, I feel this is my lucky day.
Brilliant.
I'll take that off. But hey, and welcome to another episode of Rankum. We had a forced week off because I had no internet for a right bit, but we're back and doing about John Williams scores. And over here we've got Jonathan Carey. John, how's it going?
Very well, musically sound. For a change, I didn't have to watch many movies to prepare for this. All I had to hear is listen to mostly wonderful music from the maestro, the GOAT of movie composers. Definitely, in my opinion, that this is going to be fun. I think this is going to be the most positive-minded episode for me, at least. So yeah, I can't wait to talk about these great scores here.
Also, we've got Soda. Soda, how's it going?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting trying to figure out which of the franchise films is better. Because looking at this guy's basically his filmography, it's just like, holy crap, there's a lot of franchise films after like 1980 something. Yeah, this is going to be great. There's definitely going to be a couple on here that I'm curious to see where they rank and which of the non-franchise films are going to be on this.
Also, we've got Dylan. Dylan, how's it going?
It's going really well. I agonized over this. I know we, don't bring our own like top 10s. We nominate it one at a time, but still, like, picking only 12, of these amazing compositions is tough because a movie could be shit, but the music is still great. Like, especially with these franchises, some movies in the franchises aren't good, but the music's still always great. So that's, I think, one of the tough things we're gonna, run into is like when it comes down to the scores, do we then use the quality of the context of the movie to make like a tiebreaker? Like, how do we actually determine what the 12 best are? Because you could make a top 50 list, because I think I listened to maybe 40 scores for this. And I love them all, and I didn't listen to every track of every score. Obviously I listened to like the most notable tracks. But then some of these, there are 10 notable tracks on each one, especially like the Star Wars movies. So it's like, it just consumed my week, but I'm very happy it did. So I'm very, very excited.
I'm lucky with the franchise ones. I didn't need to re-listen to them because I'm in a local community band up here, and we're always playing John Williams medleys. Awesome. So I'm very
nice.
And last but not least, we've got Chad. Chad, how's it going?
It's going great. I don't listen to John Williams like around the clock at like maybe some of these other panelists do. But I did do a lot of homework for this, just like listening to a bunch of scores, mostly the full scores just while I worked. But like what I learned was it feels like every John Williams score is kind of the same thing.
Yes.
Just in a different configuration, but they're all distinct and unique anyways. So that's kind of like where my thoughts went. And I was like, wait, I'll just name drop a couple things. How is there Star Wars and Home Alone right now? So stuff like that. So anyways, yeah.
Here's a noticeable one that I noticed. Leia's theme and Marion's theme.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I'm excited to rank them anyways because yep, GOAT composer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those ones. And I know people are going to be saying, "Oh, you're probably going to have lots of Indiana Jones or Star Wars on this list." It's only one per franchise, because there's so many good scores out there, and like there are some franchises which may be surprising which ones actually make the list, and some maybe not. But with that, how this roots of each go around the horn and nominate a score that we think belongs on a top 12 list, and then everyone will say yes or no to if it should make the list. And we're going to start with Jonathan. Jonathan, how's it going?
Ooh, right off the bat. Okay. This is gonna be fun. All right. You know what? It's indie weekend. Let's start with the one that started it all, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, the theme is there for a reason. I mean, that the character exists for a reason. in my humble eyes, not aside from Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, who created this character, it's the music that symbolizes the character for sure. Um, I mean, there is a clip online from the AFI that Harrison Ford jokingly says when he comes on stage, like, that damn music follows me everywhere. And for a great reason. I mean, it kind of defined Harrison Ford in a way. I mean, aside from another franchise we'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, aside from that theme, I think there are like a lot of other compositions in that song, but also Marion's theme that is similar to another theme in another franchise, but it also propels their story forward, their love story forward, because they have a history as well. And also, there's another composition where it has to do with the Nazis and the bad guys. I like it gets a little sinister at times, especially with the villain Tote that we see him for the first time in the bar. He's very scary, and then of course the ending of the film. But I chose Raiders just it represents the whole franchise. And I think it's the most memorable of the five in terms of the music. But and I have, but by the way, I have not seen Dial of Destiny, so I heard it's really good as well. So Raiders to represent the whole franchise.
Soda, what do you say about Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Oh, that's a no-brainer. For the Indiana Jones franchise, I just used my favorite in the series, which was Last Crusade. But I mean, it's Raiders. I mean, there's a reason why it's called the Raiders March, not the Indiana Jones March. The score is great. Marion's theme is great. This is basically the template for action adventure scores.
Dylan, what do you say about Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah, it's. I mean, the main theme is like instantly recognizable. Like John Williams is like the master of the leitmotif, and I don't have to tell these guys what the leitmotifs are. But for anyone watching that doesn't know, it's like the common recurring phrases in these musical pieces that you can ask any given person on the street, and it's like the 4 or 5 notes or the 2 measures that someone will hum back to you, and he uses that really well here. The dun 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 dun. But he finds ways to incorporate that and like divvy it up a little bit to where maybe later it'll be a little softer or maybe a little slower, maybe a little faster. He does that with pretty much all his scores, and that's what kind of Chad was saying with the whole like they all kind of sound similar because he does use similar instrumentation in a lot of his scores, but also he uses these leitmotifs to where a lot of his scores follow this pattern of recycling a certain theme in different ways and different variants. Where he has a very distinct style. It's like an auteur filmmaker where it's not. Each score is separate, obviously, but it all feels like John Williams because he has essentially become an auteur himself in musical stylings, which is really cool. Kind of what Jonathan was saying about like the Nazi themes and stuff and the dark, sinister music. I really love how he leans into the 7th of the chord of the scale a lot, which is like the resolution note before we get to the resolve of the chord. He plays into that 7th a lot, which is really, it's almost unnerving, which really works for the villains he's trying to portray in that score. So I agree. Like I loved listening to these scores, not listening to the main themes because we all know the main themes, but looking at the other stuff, the smaller music, the kind of underscoring, and that's I think where Raiders does excel a lot too. The main theme, like Harrison Ford himself has said, like Jonathan had also said, like it's a little like you've heard it so many times, you might be quote unquote sick of it, but it's the other stuff that's really really great and all the different character motifs and stuff like that. So this is a resounding yes for me.
And Chad, what do you say about Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah, this is one of those that I can't really say no to. I mean, this may be the greatest movie in the franchise. That's definitely arguable. But yeah, it introduced that leitmotif that Dylan was talking about, that I was humming like all day, putting lyrics to all that stuff, walking around the house. And it's catchy as hell. But then, yeah, you get the Marion's theme, and then you get like all the really cool stuff at like the beginning with the, him running away from the boulder and stuff like that. Just a lot of like tension and parts. And, I didn't really bother listening to the scores for the other films in this franchise, just because I knew I was going to myself try to just make sure that we kept it to like mostly just one per franchise, even before you instituted the rule. And so I was just like, it's really just got to be, I think, this one, because, and this may be true for other franchises too. I'm not sure. It depends on what the other panelists think, but I think like most of the time, like the first one is kind of the one that sets it and does it the best, although there are probably exceptions. So yes, for sure, Raiders.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be saying this for a few other franchises, but this is one of those ones where because I rewatched all the Indiana Jones movies like last week because I was going to watch Dial of Destiny on last week anyway. So I thought, well, I'll got there into it. I've got everything on physical media. I'll watch the Indiana Jones movies. I did like, but as well those things like one thing I've noticed, especially with a few of these franchises, like aside from the main themes, a lot of the other scores, like in all the movies of the franchise, are basically very similar. And that's what I noticed with Raiders was that. Well, yes, there's like different themes for different things, but like so, I would have suggested Raiders Lost Ark because it's just one of those ones that I really like, and I think the score itself is really good. Yeah, so Raiders is going to be making this list.
Before we move on, obviously we're not going to talk about the franchise until like the end of the show. But I watched a clip of Last Crusade, and there is a scene that made me laugh a lot. And the scene where they're both strapped in the chair, both senior and junior, and a moment where I think Elsa is her name. Elsa was saying, "This is how we say goodbye in Austria." The light music, the light breezy music in the background, and then here comes the commandant coming and said, "This is how we say goodbye in Germany." And then that sinister music comes in the background. That change in that movie is like, oh, that made me laugh so hard.
But Soda was the next friend score you're going to bring up.
So this is my personal favorite out of all John Williams' scores. It's one that if Raiders and Star Wars probably didn't exist, and I even throw Jurassic Park in there, this would probably be considered his best, and it's Superman the movie. How many theme songs can you tell off the top of your head that literally sing out the name of the character? Then Superman. This is basically, again, as I just said with the other one, this is the template for all superhero theme songs. There's a reason it's come back in video games. There's a reason why they incorporated a little bit of it in Justice League the movie, the Joss Whedon one. Like, this is an iconic score. Like, you hear it, you instantly know it's Superman. I don't think he came back to do the second one. I know he definitely didn't do the other ones. And they even resurrected the score for Superman Returns, composed by John Ottman. This is a legendary piece. I think this is a Mount Rushmore John Williams score. My nomination is Superman the movie.
Dylan, what do you say about Superman the movie?
Yeah, this is already tough because I'm looking at my list and it's not in my personal like top 10, but that's not because it's not good. It's just because there's so many great ones.
Exactly.
But yeah, like it's instantly recognizable. It fits the character especially, and this is something we kind of talked about a little bit Indy, but like John Williams definitely models his scores after the characters more so than the actual story beats, which I really like. Like, it almost feels like each character has their own little theme, and this is essentially that. He's creating the voice for this character through music, which I think is really awesome. Actually, I think the main theme is the strongest part, to where like the other moments of the score are good and solid, but that main theme is really what sticks out and what I think most people remember. And while it's not in my top 10, I do think we owe it a lot of credit, because the superhero themes, like, that's a thing now. Like, the Avengers have a theme, Batman 89 there was a theme. I think superhero themes and the idea of each superhero kind of having their own distinct, unique sound. I mean, Wonder Woman, how many times this year have they used the Wonder Woman score? I mean, you heard it already twice. Shazam and Flash, it's like, Wonder Woman's coming because you hear that. You're like, I love that idea, and I think John Williams is a lot of the reasoning for why we have superhero motifs in general. So I'm going to say yes, just for what it stands for in the grand scheme of cinema as well, because it is historic for sure.
Yeah, and I know we're all talking about the main theme, but I also give a shout out to his "Can You Read My Mind" Lois Lane's theme song as well.
But just I know we're talking about Superman the movie. interesting fact I looked up. He actually composed 3 new themes for Superman: The Quest for Peace too.
Really? How hard up
Yeah.
for cash was he?
But the majority of it was Alexander Courage sort of adapting John Williams' style and whatnot.
Yeah. I was gonna say he wasn't even supposed to do the original. It was supposed to be Jerry Goldsmith, and then I think scheduling issues happened. They used Jerry Goldsmith's theme, I think, in the trailer, and then they ended up hiring John Williams for the full movie, which is,
For the better,
kind
in
of
my
a whole
opinion.
alternate universe. What
Yeah.
could have been.
But Chad, what do you say about Superman the movie?
Yeah, I'm right there with Soda on this one. This would have to be in my top like 3 or 4. Real way up there for sure, because I adore this movie. I adore just like the classic Superman that we have not been able to get right since. And I think the music is like a big part of it, because it's all about tone. And I think the reason why John Williams really elevates this version of Superman above all else is that he makes Superman feel grand and feel just epic in a way, just with the the bigness of the score. I don't know how else to say it, to put it music into words here, but just when you're listening to it, you're just like, yes, kind of a deal. And I just never got that with any other version of Superman, and really not many like modern day like superheroes either, like modern takes on superheroes. I think the closest that I would get like other scores that maybe like come close, there's like Hans Zimmer with The Dark Knight, and like in No Way Home with Michael Giacchino, stuff like that. But other than that, I'm just like, no one's really been able to, I think, take music and just like build up a superhero quite like that. And I don't know, maybe if James Gunn can go back to that. I don't think we're going to get like a John Williams score for that, but maybe somebody can come close again, but probably not, because I think this is just a pretty perfect score. And this is one of the ones that I had the most in fun and enjoyment listening to, because it brought me back to watching Superman on screen. So yeah, yes, for sure.
His music makes you think a man can fly. Like, that's how I feel when I listen to it, because I feel like I could go and fly.
I honestly, I think if James Gunn asked John Williams, I think John Williams would be happy to do it. Because
it's just he's getting there, so I'm like,
well, yeah. I mean, there was talk that The Fabelmans was going to be his final score, but then he announced he was coming back for Die with Destiny. So I think for an iconic character, it's like if he's asked, like he may come back. Like I think he's one of those ones that will probably keep composing music until the unfortunate day
until he can't anymore.
Even then, I think he'll do it from beyond the. I think he'll do it from beyond the grave. But yeah, I mean, this is one is actually a little bit tougher for me, because outside of the actual main theme, if you're doing John Williams themes, then Superman the Superman theme would for sure be an easy yes for me. But when it comes to the entire score, a lot of it is really forgettable for me. Well, I did listen to a couple of the other tracks just to try and refresh my memory. I really couldn't place her in the movie. It is, so, but that being said, even though we are doing sort of one per franchise, I'm going to still give this a slight yes, just because it's still in the range where I'm happy to say yes to it. So yeah, Jonathan, what do you say about Superman the movie?
Well, it's going to make the list anyway. I like the movie. I love the theme. The thing is that I don't remember much of the score for Superman the movie, and it actually was in the cusp of the 12 for me. And maybe it's because I haven't seen it in a while. That's probably why, and that's why I had it like right outside my 12. Now, if I had, yeah, it would have changed my perspective here. So I would have given a slight no, but I'm not upset with this, to be honest, because again, there are so many great scores, so many great scores. Like I had like 10 to 12 competing for my last 2 slots. Yeah. I'm not joking.
Yeah,
it's just really difficult, but not upset about that one.
How about that? Superman the movie does make the list, and I know Matt Kearns will be happy because that was one of the scores he told me should be here. But Dylan, what is the next one you're going to bring up?
This is so tough because like I have some like not niche ones, but like ones that I feel like deserve to be talked about that I want to make sure it gets mentioned. But for this first round, I think we're gonna go with some of the heavy hitters. So I'm gonna go with one that is actually my favorite Spielberg film's score, and that is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Um, and this is one of those things where I can't really separate the movie from the score. I think the score is the movie, but I looking at it on its own, listening to it on its own, I really do like what he's doing musically. I love kind of like using multiple key signatures to kind of create this kind of odd feeling, this odd kind of clashing of music, but not in a way that feels like dissonant. It still makes sense with one another, but it creates almost like a mystery feeling, which is really interesting because usually you'd think two different key signatures are going to create something almost icky, kind of like the Nazi-like stuff he did in Raiders, but it actually kind of complements this kind of unease in the earlier part of the film where you're just kind of like exploring things, because a lot of the early part of the film, E.T. doesn't speak, and a lot of the film is like from that perspective and that curiosity like lens. So he had to, it's a tough task. You have to kind of like create a score that like kind of emulates the character while also kind of giving the audience that feeling of mystery without turning the audience off either. We don't want ET to come across as a threat, so you have to make something that's still soft enough that the audience can kind of ease into the film. And I think he does a good job with that. And then of course the flying theme is so memorable. Again, it's that leitmotif, the flying through the air, da, 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 da.
Yep.
But then at the end, like that whole sequence from the flying, but then also to the end, that whole like last 15 minutes is continuous. It doesn't really stop. It's all musical to where it's its own little suite. And I was reading about it and listening to it with the context of the movie, and it's interesting because Spielberg actually went back and re-edited some of the film to match the score. So the film was made, John Williams scored it, then Spielberg went back and re-edited it to match the score. And I just love the collaboration between Williams and Spielberg, just the back and forth. You give me something, I will edit around you, we'll adjust together, rather than here's the movie, make the score, or here's the score, let me make the movie around it. Or in some cases, here's a score, here's a movie, hope they work together. Let's see, let's chance it. And I love the collaboration here. I just think there's some beautiful stuff going on. I love the use of instruments and how they build. How it's a lot softer. He uses very little horns early on in a lot of these musical compositions. He uses a lot of piano, strings, light woods, and then builds into some of the more, staple John Williams horns and cellos and violins and all that. It really works, especially the bridges and the interludes and the intros into those main choruses, I guess, those main themes. It's just really exciting, and it's one of my favorite scores, separate from the movie, but especially in the context of the movie. So it's definitely up there for me as one of my favorites.
Fun fact: the main in 12/4 time. Played it yesterday.
Chad, what do you say about E.T.?
Well, first of all, listening to the score by itself without the movie, I was surprised to actually, wonder at some point if I was kind of listening to a Star Wars score, if I was listening to E.T., because you hear so much of that in there. But it actually fits because you do see Yoda at one point in E.T. But no, like E.T. is one of those movies that, and you can say that for a lot of these Spielberg, John Williams combos, where it's just almost like every single piece of the movie is perfect. I think that especially for E.T., I just think this is like one of the greatest films ever made. And so I think if we were doing any sort of a list of like any piece of filmmaking, I think you could put E.T. on that list somewhere. And, for score, Dylan did a really good job at explaining like how the score works overall. But I think like just that one piece alone where it's, the score basically lifting them up in the air. And when that score drops and they lift up in the air, it's almost like the Superman thing is like, you can believe you can fly and stuff like that. And it's just, that the movie can't work without the score. And, if you ever get a chance, like I did, to see this in the theater, it just, that score in like a big theater, just, ringing in your ears. It's just like, it's like no other. And it's just going to definitely bring tears to your eyes.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I named my son Elliot. So there you go. So yes, for sure.
Is his middle name John Williams?
No.
It's Gertie, isn't it?
No, his middle name's Spider. Elliot.
No,
Spider.
it's Keys. Keys. It's Keys.
Um, but anyway, look, I mean, I do like ET a lot. ET is one of those ones that I don't really remember. Outside of that, like flying sequence in that, I don't really remember the score that much. Like my mum was watching it the other day. I heard the scores. Like I actually asked her what she was watching because I didn't recognize the score. But it's one of those ones like there's a good chance we're going to have a lot of Spielberg on this list as it is. I'm going to say no to E.T., but I won't hate it if it makes the list. Jonathan, what do you say about E.T.?
This is the most musical, the most magical score in his filmography, as far as I'm concerned. His score is the epitome of magic for this film. The first notes we hear in the movie are very brooding. It's like something dark is going to happen, something mysterious is going to happen, it's going to appear. And the moment we see E.T., he's a very small figure as he's, trotting in the woods at night, and he's isolated from his clan or his family, and it's kind of brooding. And then it becomes sad because the mysterious group of men are seeing these this spaceship, and we see all these flashlights that represent the men chasing after that spaceship. And then it draws down into almost near silence, where ET's all alone, and it's very sad. And then we get variations of different themes along the way. But I think also, in my opinion, it has the best musical cue for me, where it starts with probably the best chase music I've ever heard. It goes from one moment where they find the van to the bicycle chase, and every time I hear that cue for the bicycle chase, it just makes me so giddy. It's like, oh man, I just smiling throughout this whole chase scene until we get to the bicycle flying scene. So it's definitely in my top 12. It's fantastic. So it is a 100% yes for me.
Soda, what do you say about E.T.?
This is 100% yes for me as well. This is one where I like the score more than like the movie. That's partially because I didn't realize for so many years I was watching the much more horrible re-edit. That movie made me, that re-edit really made me want to punch Elliot through his face. But no, like this score, I really can't add anything more to it other than there's two particular pieces that are burned in my mind because I play them all the time. But it is the first part, the little more rascally, boom boom. I love that. And then of course when you hear the groundswell, and from experience from playing this, you do get that feeling of flight when you're playing it. That the dun 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 dun, and then you hear it in canon form. Oh. It is easily one of his best compositions of all time. Is that main ET theme that you hear at the end?
But if that ET is going to make the list, Chad, we go to you next. What's the first score you're going to bring up?
Well, first, I just want to mention, because Jonathan Peck threw that in there about Elliot Alderson. Yep, that's also part of it, Mr. Robot. Check it out. But yeah. This one's hard. There are like, I think 2 that I just really, really want to get on there. But I'm going to go with the one that I feel like people probably expect me most to do. And I'm wearing the shirt. But the question is, there was 2 of them that I was thinking about doing. Which one? That's the question. And I had one for a while that I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that one instead. I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to go with the classic, the original Sorcerer's Stone.
Philosophers, you heathen.
Whatever. American production, Sorcerer's Stone, whatever. but no, we call it Philosophers if you want. The reason I went with this is because, I saw it live. I feel like, because I saw it live, it's so much more special for me. And I feel like the original is the classic one. Just that main, score that you get, the main theme, the leitmotif that you get for Harry Potter. I feel like since the movies came out, you just cannot separate that from Harry Potter now. And it's just so crazy that you had these books for a little bit, and then you had the movies, and now it's just linked. So I just feel like this score is just one of the greatest ones, and it's just, to me, it's just really sad that it came out in the same year that Lord of the Rings came out, because I feel like Harry Potter has been really to that detriment, always been at the heels of Lord of the Rings. And I'm glad that the score got nominated, but I really, really wish it could have won, because that's just one of the most personal scores to me. So I'll let other people talk, but I adore this score in all shapes and form. And if another one if this one gets shot down, another one gets nominated and makes it on, that's fine too. But I just think I have to really go with the original here.
Gee, I wonder what people expect me to say.
No, for me, dog.
Look, I mean, I love Harry Potter, as most people know, and I do like the score for the first Harry Potter movie. I do think it's fun, but just for the reason it's actually not my favorite Harry Potter movie that he did the score for, I'm actually going to say no to it. So yeah, but I wouldn't hate it if it makes the list. But
This happens to me a lot, by the way.
Jonathan, what do you say about the first Harry Potter movie?
I mean, Chad said it. I mean, the score links it to the franchise as a whole. It basically starts with the logo, to be honest, the WB logo. It just da 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 da, and then it's just inserted into your mind for the rest of the movie and for the rest of the franchise, and for the rest of time now because of the theme parks. And whenever you read the books again or see the movies, I think see the movies more because yeah. But anyway. It is a tough one. All I put was just Harry Potter. That's it. I mean, because I think he did the first three, of course, but the one reason I say yes to this is because of the ending, and the ending is linked to the end of the last movie, Deathly Hallows Part 2, and is reused again. And is basically a mark as to how important John Williams' score is in the first movie. I mean, it's a great circle. It's a great end to the franchise, as it is to the first film, where we say goodbye to Harry on the train. So yeah, that's basically the reason why I'm saying yes to it. I understand there is another movie that I think probably uses his score equally as good, but yeah, I'll go with this one. I listen to this score a lot, and there are a lot of scenes where he uses different compositions, whereas with Snape or the chess scene, the Quidditch scene,
the Christmas scene,
the Christmas,
yeah.
That every time I hear that, it's like I'm in the spirit right there, just like that. And yeah, you know what? Now it's 100% yes. Thank you for saying that. The Christmas scene. I forgot about that.
But Soda, what do you say about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone?
Yeah, this is a yes for me, but it would be at the lower end of the list just because there's only really the one, or outside of the Christmas stuff, it's really Hedwig's theme that is the standout from that. Yes. So based on the strength of that alone, it's a yes for me.
Yes.
And Dylan, what do you say about Philosopher's Stone?
Yeah, if this was like toward the end where we were like battling for which is going to get on, and we had the opportunity to like debate this or the other score, I would have maybe said no just to talk about the other score. But if I say no to this and no Harry Potter movies make it on, I'll feel so bad because I want a Harry Potter movie to make it on. I did the same as Jonathan. I wrote Harry Potter, and then when I looked at it though, I really, since this is going to make it on, because I'm going to say yes, I do want to just bring up Prisoner of Azkaban real quick because it has two of my favorite
that's cool.
compositions, which is the stuff with like the Dementors. I believe it's called the Dementors Converge, where the you see like the bright light, and he kind of uses like almost like a heavenly choir like sound to kind of like show this aura, and I love that piece. I also love the Night Bus; it's so fun, and I also really like the Time Turner. He kind of uses the music and kind of like goes back in time and reuses, like kind of canonizes musical measures on top of one another, which is fun. But yeah, that first one is really where it's at. You invent the theme. And while they do play that theme again in Prisoners of Azkaban, or at least part of it, the opening motif of it, you get the full thing in the first one, where it kind of has that switch where it's like dun, 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 dun. That's great. And then when they're going through the town, and I'm trying to think of I would sing it off the top of my mind, but now I'm stuck in that other musical area. But yeah, again, Jonathan, at the end, like when you hear the da 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 when he's getting on the train, which they also recycle at the end, like it fills you with joy. And I actually, Chad, when he visited New York, we went to the Harry Potter store, and they play it in the store, and it just kind of gives you that kind of amusement park feel where you just want to kind of like walk through and just listen to the music and immerse yourself in the world. And you hear it at the theme parks too. There's a reason this music works so well, is because it feels unique to this universe, similarly to how all these scores so far have felt unique to their characters and their universes. So it's definitely a yes for me. Another score where he wasn't supposed to do it, it was, I think, going to be James Horner, and then James Horner couldn't do it, and they were like, listen, we need a trailer, we need trailer music, can you do this, John? Because he had worked with Chris Columbus in Home Alone, so John Williams was like, yeah, I'll do a little something, and the little something ends up being the most iconic piece of music in history. That might be an exaggeration, but one of them. And he whips out the Hedwig's theme, and they're like, yep, nope, you booked it, you got the job. So I just think that's such a cool story as well. So it's a big yes for me, and I know how much Chad loves it, so I'm glad he got to nominate it. So yeah.
I mean, I almost had I had Prisoner of Azkaban on my list for a long time, and then I was just like, you know what? Because it has all that stuff that you're talking about, like it's just so much different things. But then I was like, I have to go with the classic, I feel like. And I feel like we're kind of going to come to the same kind of thing with Star Wars down the line. No?
Well, for me, no. But
because I feel like there's like different like trilogies, you have different kind of things. So
yeah,
we'll see. But go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry,
I got one more. In Prisoner of Azkaban, I think one of the most memorable pieces for me is when Sirius leaves. After he gets rescued, when he's flying away with Buckbeak. I was like, oh man, this is so great. And then they used it again in the Goblet of Fire trailer, which unfortunately that's the end of his run. I mean, those scores are okay in the future, but I mean, I think those first three, 1 and 3 for sure, I think they're really, really good.
Yeah, so all the scores you mentioned from Prisoner of Azkaban is the exact reason I was going to go nominate Prisoner of Azkaban. So I think I think hands down it's the better score out of the 3 that he did Harry Potter. But it is what it is. Philosopher's Stone makes the list. But yeah, and one thing I'll say is like, whether or not they do or not, because I think they use the Harry Potter score for the advertisement for the series that's coming to Max. I don't think it's going to be the official score that they're going to use for the series. They'll probably create something new or something for that, but something have it sound similar, so to speak. But anyway, moving on to me. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off and go for Star Wars. And I know a lot of people expect me to go for the OG, the one that set it off. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go for the one that I think has the better score and the better sort of new additions to the score, and I think makes it better. And that is the Phantom Menace. Because look,
interesting.
Because you've got the iconic Star Wars theme, which is pretty standard and all that, but for me, Duel of the Fates is really one of the greatest sort of like actual themes in the entire Star Wars franchise, in my opinion. I would put Duel of the Fates over Imperial March any day. But it's just one of those ones like if I was to listen to a Star Wars score when I'm doing something I don't really want to put on a movie, I would go to Phantom Menace. It's just I love that score. It's just stuff that I like and I'll listen to over and over again. More so for the other ones, like with the other movies, I'll probably go to like the Imperial March once or twice and stuff like that. So yeah, Jonathan, what do you say about the Phantom Menace?
Okay. Yeah, it's a good score. Duel of the Fates, yes, it is one of the most iconic pieces of music ever. I will say this. I think you kind of bit yourself in the foot with this strategy here. Here's why. And this is why I'm going to say no. Now, it is used very well in Phantom Menace in the lightsaber duel with Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Yes. Now, it is reused again in Attack of the Clones badly. I don't understand why George Lucas made the decision to reuse that theme in Attack of the Clones. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. And it is a little bit better in Revenge of the Sith. But besides the opening theme and Duel of the Fates, it's not much in between, to be honest. Like, I don't remember much other compositions in the Phantom Menace. Because I don't think there's like a Jar Jar theme at all. And there's no racing music. There's not much racing music in the pod race, just like towards the end. So while Duel of the Fates, it's iconic piece of music, I think you kind of bit you in the foot right there. I think you stepped on your foot yourself. But yeah, I'm gonna go no on this one. Yeah.
Soda, what do you say about the Phantom Menace?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a tentative no as well, just because I agree with Jonathan there. Outside of really Duel of the Fates in the opening theme song, there's not really much of anything that I can name you. Score-wise, of course, outside of Qui-Gon's death because of the controversy that caused. But
okay, 20 more seconds there. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like this Attack of the Clones is a good score, but it's not near my top for Star Wars.
Dylan, what do you say about Phantom Menace?
Yeah, this is tough because no matter which Star Wars film you pick, you're always leaving off something. So like, if you don't pick this film, you're leaving off this thing. If you're picking this film, you're getting this, but you're losing this. This film, you get Duel of the Fates. You do get bits and pieces of, like, the Imperial March is in there very subtly. At times, it's not in its full length, though. There's a moment maybe of it. You get a little bit of Yoda's theme when Yoda has his scene. A little bit, but it's a very small little motif in the bigger thing. You don't hear it play to its fullness, and it's stuff that, like, you don't even, like, they don't have their own tracks on the soundtrack or anything, but like in the movie you'll hear Yoda's theme in there, but it's not like you're getting the full Yoda's theme or the full Imperial March. You're only getting, like we've said, the full main title and Duel of Fates, which is amazing. It's in my top 3 Star Wars scores because of Duel of the Fates, because that is my favorite singular piece of Star Wars music. But I think in terms of overall score, I think other Star Wars films have just more individual bangers, whereas this one has one really good one. And like, if we're going by single tracks, like if we were to do a rank 'em of Star Wars themes, Duel of the Fates would probably be top 2, top 3. But in terms of the overall score, I do have to say no, just because I think other films, and I think my favorite Star Wars film is not even the first one, because there's other films that add on to what the first one set. But I think this one doesn't do enough to add anything more than just Duel of the Fates for me.
And Chad, what do you have said about the Phantom Menace?
I mean, kind of the same thing. Like, these guys have just made like really good arguments. And like, I don't know. I know that there's the idea that a piece can be really, really phenomenal on its own, even in a movie that might not be that great, because I don't want to outright just call Phantom Menace like terrible or anything. Like, I think it's got some quality in it, and the score included, there's some good stuff in there for sure. Like the lightsaber battles and stuff like that. But you get that in a lot of Star Wars movies with like great music during those scenes and stuff. And so I feel like there's probably, even though I definitely respect the the try, Malcolm, I think that there is probably just a few Star Wars ones that are superior. There's a lot of movies, a lot of good ones in each, or a few good ones in each trilogy and stuff like that. So I feel like there is one that we could probably mostly agree on, and it might not be this one. So,
I mean, there's about 10 and a half more Star Wars movies that we're probably going to bring up. Unless someone wants to really advocate for the one theme he did for Solo, but Jonathan, what is the next movie you're going to bring up?
Okay. No, I'm not going to bring another Star Wars movie. I'm going to save some. I'm going to have one person talk about that one later. You know what? You alluded to it, Chad. I think it was Chad or Malcolm. I don't know who it was, but Home Alone. I'm going to nominate Home Alone. The most iconic piece of holiday score ever, I guess. It's very interesting because when we, I think there's a show, The Movies That Made Us on Netflix. Basically, they were okay. They were like okay, it's going to be a nice family Christmas movie. It's like, all right, fine. When John Williams comes into the game, it changes the whole movie. It changes the whole landscape for sure. There are numerous pieces of music that makes this movie work. From the opening theme, of course, Home Alone theme, to the when they're on their way, when they're in a hurry to get to the plane, to the Wet Bandits theme, of course. Okay, and the little motif with the neighbor, actually that creates one big scare to a great big laugh a little later in the movie, and then of course the ending, and then he obviously uses a few variations of Christmas music in between, and then the music where he preps for the Wet Bandits to come to his house and he has to defend it. So I think Home Alone, without that score, without that soundtrack to the whole movie, it wouldn't have been as memorable or been hailed as one of the best Christmas movies of all time without John Williams's music there. So Home Alone, the first one.
Soda, what do you say about Home Alone?
This is going to be a tentative yes for me because when it comes to Home Alone, it's not the score that grabs me. I only really watch it to see the Wet Bandits get the shit kicked out of them at this point in my life. I'm not gonna lie. It is a good score, but it's not one that I immediately identify with John Williams. So it's a tentative yes for me.
Dylan, what do you say about Home Alone?
Yeah, I don't love the film, but I think the music is definitely a highlight of it. Like I definitely think kind of what Jonathan mentioned, that family trip music where it's like it's essentially the Nutcracker, but like they bring the music, they kind of scale it down rather than scale it up. Like instead of it's like it's really fun how he kind of like incorporates kind of the famous Christmas music we know while also kind of making his own classic Christmas music at once. I actually didn't even consider that main theme because I thought it was a song, not a score. I know he might have composed it, but I have a trouble drawing the line of like, did he pull the music from the song and then use that in the score, or is
somewhere
it
in my memory?
Yeah, like is that the da 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 da? Yeah. But either way, like it's still beautifully used, whether or not it counts when we're discussing the score. But yeah, I like how he does use choral stuff in that because choral stuff can be part of the score. I mean, Duel of the Fates has it. I just, it's not in my top 10 only because again, John Williams is so freaking awesome at what he does, and I feel like this score isn't as personal to me because I just am not a big fan of I mean, I shouldn't even say big fan. I just don't have the nostalgia for the film. I saw it for the first time like 3 years ago. So I haven't like lived with the score and like loved the score my whole life, the way a lot of you have. So I don't have that same bond to the score, but the score is beautiful. So I'm going to be no only because I have so many others on my list that I want to get to, but I'm sure it'll make it on just knowing who else has to answer. But I'm glad you brought it up because it's a great score.
But yeah, fun fact that I actually just found out when I was looking up the thing. Apparently, John Williams wasn't the original choice for Home Alone either. It was going
That's
to be
why.
the
Yeah.
composer for Rescuers Down Under.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Helps
But
to have
Chad, what are your,
connections.
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I was just about to bring up that fact, Malcolm. So yeah, that's a really fun kind of thing to where, like, if the Rescuers Down Under guy hadn't had that prior commitment, John Williams wouldn't have come in and elevated that movie as much as he did, and basically kind of made my childhood what it was. Because I'm exactly the kind of guy that Dylan was talking about. It's like, that movie like just made my childhood, made my Christmas every year. It still does every single year. I'm like, that's one of the ones I have to watch like on Christmas. It is Christmas. It's like that and Elf are like my top like two basically for the Christmas season. And Jonathan's exactly right. This was going to be my next nomination if no one else did, and I didn't know if anyone else would because I know it's mostly like a personal pick because it's not as it's not as like iconic in the same way as like, some of the other movies that haven't been mentioned and a Star Wars and stuff like that. It's just not, even though it is iconic in its own way as a Christmas film and a Christmas score. But I think the music exactly elevates the movie because Jonathan was exactly right, basically saying that, had he not come in and did everything that he did with the score, it's just it's still a great movie, but it's like, what music can do. It can elevate a movie and just like make you like really feel it. And he talked about like the old man showing up and the dun, 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 dun. It's just like, I don't know, just like the musical cues and stuff like that are just so great. Them running and just everything that's somewhere in my memory. I think sort of counts in it, because it is like the melody and stuff. Even I think they just made another song with it, and then just like the main Home Alone theme. It's so close to Harry Potter. Like when I'm sitting there listening to the Sorcerer's Stone or listening to Home Alone, I hear both, and I think it's because John Williams has that gifted ability to pair like what he's writing to the filmmaker that he's writing for, and that's why Chris Columbus movies, his score for those sound a lot alike and stuff like that. So Spielberg ones a lot of the time sound very similar to, like I said, with E.T. and Star Wars and stuff like that. So but yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I love the score. It's one of the ones that I just think the score elevates the movie so much. And yeah, I could talk about this a lot more, but I'll shut up now.
But yeah, I mean, I do like the movie Home Alone. Aside from the main theme, I don't really remember the rest of the themes. It's the rest of the story, personally. And I mean, John Williams did write the music for some in my memory, just to so he did do the music for that. But yes, I would have said no to Home Alone, but it's going to make the list regardless. But yeah, and we move over to Soda.
Okay, so this is one I'm going to nominate. I think the score is great. I know a lot of people, it seems like outside of my generation, don't really like this movie. So it's probably one of the least like Spielberg Williams collaborations, and that is the score for Hook.
Mhm.
I'm one of those huge Hook fans. I remember getting it in an Easter basket when it came out on VHS. I wore the shit out of that tape. It is a fun, whimsical movie. Unfortunately, Steven Spielberg himself does not like to watch it. But no, this is a really great whimsical adventure score from John Williams because we are dealing with a bunch of Lost Boys here. No, I think this score is underrated because the movie isn't well regarded compared to other collaborations. My nomination is for Hook.
Dylan, what do you say about Hook?
Yeah, this is another one where like the normal general perception is that people don't like hooks, but I think this is one of the things where the score is much better than the movie, and I think the score, I actually really like Hook, but score I think is solid. The only thing is it like has that similar feel, kind of like both Superman and E.T. It's got like that flying feel. Obviously, Peter Pan flies, but it's kind of got that soaring flying feel that I think is kind of represented on this list, to where if I'm going to listen to one of those rousing, like, wow, I'm flying in the air and I'm so carefree and joyous and childlike and full of whimsical fun, I think I mean, that's a lot of John Williams scores, but I think we already have a lot of them on here. Like Superman, E.T., Harry Potter, and Home Alone have that childlike kind of excitement feel to it, to where I think other scores I personally prefer when listening back to John Williams scores and stuff. But it's John Williams, so it's an amazing score. It's just not one that I personally go back to a lot. And it's just I haven't seen Hook in a while, so I haven't seen it in context in a while too. Which I know we're just going with the scores, but it helps to always have it in context. And I can't really pinpoint anything except for that one main flying theme, which I think other scores do a little bit better. But it's a great pick. It's awesome that you brought it up because I think it is an underrated movie and score. So it's worth mentioning, but it is a slight no for me.
Chad, what do you say about Hook?
I'm gonna say yes to Hook. Reason being, I do think this is an underrated classic of a film. So I think Soda is definitely right there. That people should go back. I watched this all the time as a kid. I don't watch it a lot as an adult. I think that's a mistake. I think I'm just overdue for just a big Hook rewatch, just because I love a lot of that stuff. But the score specifically. I had forgotten to listen to this one. It's one of the ones that I wish I had, though, because going and listening to it while other people were talking and stuff like that, I was like, man, this is kind of a banger of a score. Like, listen to the Banning Back Home track, and I was like, it's like just kind of like vibing to it. So I feel like kind of like a different kind of John Williams score. And it seems really fun and fantastical. And one thing that it gave me the idea about is that I think John Williams really excels. That's why I love Sorcerer's Stone. I love Home Alone. I love E.T. I think he just excels when he's writing scores for movies that involve like children. For some reason, I don't know, but I think there's some sort of connectivity there. But yeah, I was listening to it. Just feels like a lot of really different stuff that is not just kind of samey, which I feel like it can get for me sometimes in different movies. So I just really want to say yes to this because I think that it is an underrated classic and I feel like the music is actually pretty exceptional. So yeah.
Just like what Dylan said, like I like the movie Hook. I think it's great. The score, I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't really remember the score a bit. That well, like I think I listened to a couple of tracks sort of in composing this. Is like it's a good score. So I'm also going to be a slight no, just because there is other things I want to try and educate people that I think deserve on it more. But with that, it's going to come down to Jonathan. What do you say about Hook?
Ooh boy.
No pressure.
Okay. Look, I came to this movie way too late. And I saw it like probably a couple years ago for the first time. And yeah, I didn't like it. And yeah, I understand that if you saw it in your childhood and it connects with you, that's fine. Yeah, I only remember the flight scene and the ending with the score, and it's lovely. Yeah, it's both pieces of music and the movie. I just do not gravitate towards, and it did not make my list, even the runners up. I think it's kind of a forgettable score in my opinion, but it's okay, but it's a no for me. But again, it's because I came to this movie too late in my life. So,
but if that Hook doesn't make the list,
the one thing I will concede to a lot of people that don't like this movie is I do agree at this age it is still a little too long. I probably would shorten the movie. But that's really my only complaint about it at this point.
Yep, that's my complaint as well.
Fair.
But Chad, what is the next movie you're going to bring up?
Oh, is it me next?
No, right, it's Dylan. Dylan was the next movie you're going to bring up.
I kind of wish it was Chad because there's still so many on here. There's so many ones that I don't know if y'all are going to bring up that I want to bring attention to, but there's still some heavy hitters out there. So I'll go with one that's like not a cliche, but it's something that I think is like when you think of John Williams and music and the function of music in movies, I think Close Encounters of the Third Kind is like one you have to go to just because, the movie is about communication with aliens or with extraterrestrial life. And the idea that like music is the thing that unites us and is our language. And music for me has always been like, when people ask what languages do you speak, like I speak English and I speak music. You know, like I communicate through music, and I think that's one way of uniting people. And I think what John Williams' score symbolizes, and again, it's like it sounds good on its own, but especially in the context of the movie, I think it's even heightened to where, you know, music is the fundamental key backbone of all these Spielberg films and all these other films, in the fact that it communicates so much that the words of the movie itself don't. And I think that's the whole premise of Close Encounters, is being able to communicate without words, and that's kind of what this score stands for. And you know, it's another one of those instantly iconic, you know, motifs where if you ask someone to hum Close Encounters, even if they haven't seen it, they could probably do it. The dun 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 dun. It's just an iconic six, dun, 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 yeah, 5 notes. Sorry, I can't count. But it's an iconic 5.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, 5.
5.
I don't know why that took me so long to figure out on my own. But like an iconic 5 notes. Also, just the technology, you know, being able to kind of like create that almost kind of like synthesizer, kind of like booming, almost organ-like sound. I think, you know, instrumentation goes a long way in these scores too. We didn't talk much about it with any of the other scores yet, but just the use of different instruments to create different emotions and different sounds, and kind of have this almost like industrial like feel as well to it, this almost mechanic like feel. You know, it's not my favorite Williams score, but I think if we're looking at music, and you know, this is a show about music and a topic about music, this is the film where the music is an actual crucial diegetic part of the film, where it is used as an actual communication point. And I think, you know, if you don't have a really solid score, it kind of loses all power in what the movie itself is trying to say. And the fact that Spielberg was a kid of a musician, an artist, and a scientist, and this is essentially music and science coming together. It's a beautiful motif for Spielberg's career as well. And it's so early in Spielberg's career. This is one of the first collaborations with the two. So Close Encounters is going to be my next nomination.
Yeah, that would have been their second, right?
I
They only did Jaws before that?
Sugarland Express and Jaws. So this is
I keep forgetting about Sugarland Express.
third.
Yeah.
Which make them up later as well.
But Chad, what do you say about Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
I really, really like this movie. I did listen to the score, and I was sitting there thinking, like, I just don't think the score as a whole is that memorable. But I was always listening to a lot of these scores as I was working, so there's probably a lot of stuff that I could have missed too. But I think Dylan is right though, where you think about like kind of like, you know, like the groundbreaking nature of like a score and stuff like that. And I do think music is pretty essential, especially at the end with the, you know, the alien ship and stuff like that. So I think for that, I don't think I can say no to this, but I'm interested to see if you all agree. So I'll say yes. Yeah, so yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the movie. I don't remember the score that much, so I'm going to be a slight no. Jonathan, what do you say about Close Encounters?
We're gonna have a lot of Spielberg Williams things on the list, and I have to, yeah, because obviously we have to have like at least 3 more on the list, like because it's gonna be blasphemous if we don't have them on there. Boy, this is tough. Close Encounters is a really good score, especially the last 25-30 minutes. And it also brought to my attention the interview on Inside the Actors Studio when oh god, what's his name? What is his name? The host. Huh?
James Lipton.
James Lipton, thank you.
James
Lipton brought up the question that they communicate. His father was a computer scientist. His mother was a composer. And then Spielberg was just illuminated with that question. It's like, you answered the question. That's it. And then it was kind of illuminating again that it didn't get brought up even during the making of this movie until that moment. And it's just, that's awesome. And but unfortunately, yes, the last 30 minutes of the movie is the best part of the movie, is the best uses of score ever for me. The rest of the score, the rest of the movie, while it's really good, I don't remember much of the score really well besides that ba 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 and then the variations of the music. Um, while that last piece is it's beautiful. I'm gonna go a slight no, but it was on my runners up list. That was actually one of the 10 competing for the 2 slots, and it is a fantastic piece. So up to you, man. Up to you, Soda.
Well, I'm sorry, but this is also gonna be a slight no for me. But there's a reason for it. I've only seen the movie once, and it was only a couple years ago. This is one of the John Williams Spielberg blind spots for me. I will say though, I was incredibly impressed when it was revealed to me in the movie because somehow I managed to avoid the spoilers for all those years. But when I realized that the motif you heard throughout the entire film was the way the aliens were communicating with everyone, that fucking blew my mind. I thought that was amazing use of music, but unfortunately, agreed outside of that, nothing really sticks with me.
But Chad, now you get, move over to you. What is the next one you're going to bring up?
Again,
Well, it's gonna be a Spielberg score because I mean it's one of those where I understand where it's like you don't want Spielberg to dominate, but honestly, those two are like the most linked, like composer to director. I think that I can name off the top of my head.
Yep.
So it just makes sense.
So far, there's as much Columbus as there is Spielberg on here. So far, at least.
True, but I feel like there's so many iconic ones that Spielberg is bound to dominate the list.
Yeah.
Do it anyway. Do it.
And I was between two, and I'm still between two, but I'm gonna go with the one that I think it would be a shame if it didn't make it on the list. So that's where I'm going because I'm like, look, say everybody else gets a yes, I might get to nominate one more after this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and nominate Jaws because it's iconic. And you know what? I want to get a bona fide horror movie on the list. I know there's some people that might say Jaws isn't a horror movie because for some reason, if you have drama in a horror movie, people will say, no, not horror enough for me. But yeah, to me, this is definitely a horror movie. It's one of the best. It was nominated for Best Picture. Most people probably say that it should have won, which I would agree with because it's like a perfect movie, basically. And the score is definitely a part of that. You can't create as much tension in this movie that you get without such a brilliant score. The iconic da-dun, 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 that people always mimic all the time with the shark and stuff like that. And that's kind of the discussion of the movie is like how brilliant. Well, because they had so many mechanical issues that they're kind of forced to do it this way, where you don't show the shark as much, but you do more, kind of hint at than you actually show.
It won best score.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the dinosaur too. But what?
It won best score.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm talking about like the shark not being on screen. You just kind of like hear the score, and it's almost that like foreboding dread of the potential of the shark to come and get you that before it would actually like appear, or like a jump scare, like the body in the water or something like that. I don't know. I just feel like this is an example of John Williams doing more than just his standard kind of like big drama or big fantasy. This is a horror movie that John Williams like crushed. So yeah, Jaws for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as I forget to unmute myself, but yeah, I mean, I'm not as high on Jaws as everyone else is. Like, I think Dog Day Afternoon, if out of the movies I've seen that was nominated for Best Picture in this year, I think Dog Day Afternoon is better. But yeah, this is another one that to me, like, it's an iconic theme, but a lot of the score doesn't do anything for me, like outside of the main theme. And yeah, it's one of those ones like there's definitely a few times with the Oscars on it, it was like, are they voting on what they think of the iconic theme, or the voting on the score as a whole. Because this is one of them's like it's like the theme is good and it's iconic for a reason, but a lot of that score and draws for me is forgettable. But that being said, it still squeaked its way into my personal top 10 on there, so I'm going to give it a slight yes. But yeah, Jonathan, what do you say about Jaws?
Bum, 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 bum. 100% yes. Okay, aside from that iconic theme of the shark approaching a person, getting eaten, there are also other pieces of music that work as well, like "Farewell, my dear Spanish ladies," da 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 da, dreams of Spain, and they use that variations of that song very well, especially when Quint and the other two guys, hunt for the shark, and it's adventurous, but also you have to combine that terror with some adventure as well. I mean, that's how Spielberg, like the first great Spielberg film, where it sets the tone for his other films along the line.
All because the shark didn't fucking work.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's is going to come out as 1975, but it won Best Picture in 76.
Well, okay. Well, anyway.
I know it's random, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, but they're all three great movies, though. But where was I? No, you have to combine that terror and adventure and when you hunt the shark. Otherwise, it's just going to be one tone, and it's going to be just the theme along the way. And also, I loved the way how he chooses the end music is just calm down. The movie's over. The ocean is safe to go back into next summer. And when the two men, unfortunately Quint didn't make it, but when the two men just swims idly onto the shore, and then we hear that piece of music, and like it's a sigh of relief that while the movie's over, it's calm now. So that's why I say 100% yes, because it's not just the theme. They used other variations of music that balance the horror, the terror, and the adventure along the way. So that's it, Joss.
But apparently Jonathan was fact checking me, but
that's all right.
I didn't say anything about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So what do you say about Jaws?
Yeah, this is an easy yes for me, because without this score, the movie doesn't work. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the behind the scenes, but that is something that has been said multiple times on there. The movie didn't work until they put John Williams' score in, and that's when everyone's fear spiked right up. Yep. You don't have John Williams doing this. You don't have the concept of the summer blockbuster. So this is an easy yes for me.
Dylan, what do you say about the score for Jaws?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the theme. It's great. The 2-note ostinato that repeats itself. But I also like how a lot of the 2-note theme continues while a lot of the adventure stuff is playing. So you have the adventure stuff, you have the looming, dooming present stuff, but then there's times where they kind of play them both at the same time. So you have the da 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 da, and underneath you hear dun 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 dun. Like they're almost kind of instantaneously happening.
I never
at
thought
once.
of that.
And I think that's just so cool because it's like you can literally visualize it where like you were looking at the water and there's the ship up above and the shark below. It's happening all at the same time. You just don't know it. And I love how the music mirrors that, kind of, again, acts as the character's voice. In this case, a shark. Sharks can't speak. So this is the way of telling us the shark is coming. And I love, especially, and again, I sound like a broken record player. It's like, I know we're judging the scores, but in the context of the film, I love when they don't use the score because it's like, it lets you know you're okay, but you're almost kind of waiting for the score to come because you're like, it has to be in there, right? And then you're nervous because you're like, wait, would they catch us off guard? And I think a lot of people don't realize that while John Williams had to compose the music, yes, also being a composer, you also have to decide when not to add music. And I know some of that is also the editor's, decision, some of that's Spielberg's decision, but John Williams had to assuming he watched the cut of the movie and was scoring along with the movie, had to consciously not put any scoring at some certain moments. And I don't know who gets the most credit for that, but I think as a composer, that's another element to why Jaws is such a good score, is because he picks and chooses when to keep things silent, which is then adding to the horror. It's 100% a horror movie, by the way. So it's absolutely a yes from me, not just for the compositions, but the use of the compositions in the movie.
Yeah. Bum, 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 bum.
And that Jaws is going to make the list. But moving on to me, but yes, so there's a few that I want to bring up. At least a couple, which I'm pretty sure going to come up anyway. And but I mean, it just
It is difficult.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those ones like, and I know I didn't really say anything about sort of limited Spielberg because when most of your career is scoring Spielberg movies, it's going to be hard to do anyway. But I'm going to go for a movie which I think is very underrated. I think the score is also very underrated, and that is The Adventures of Tintin, which if it had done as well as it had, then we would have got a sequel and that. But I think the score for The Adventures of Tintin is really well done. Once again, it's another really good adventure story, which does bring in tones of like Indiana Jones and all that. And it's just another really fun movie, and I think John Williams' score really amplifies it a lot. Jonathan, what do you say about Tintin?
Well, I do agree with you that it is an underrated Spielberg movie. It is, yeah, I like that movie very much. Unfortunately, I don't remember the score that much, except for the ending. That's it. And long story short, it's a no for me because of this, the memorability of the score. I have a lot more scores ahead of Tintin, but of course, I definitely recommend this movie. I prefer this movie over the other one that came out that same year, but. Yeah, Tintin is a very good movie, but I don't find the score as memorable as other ones.
So what do you say about the score
Yeah,
for
I'm in the
Tintin?
same boat as Jonathan there. I enjoyed the movie, but I couldn't tell you a motif or anything from it. So it's also a no for me. Sorry.
Dylan, what do you say about the score for Tintin?
Yeah, I'm a little more torn on this one. I don't think it's his strongest like adventure theme, but it's kind of cool because he takes like 5 years off. I think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was like the last one he did before this, and then this very year, Spielberg's like, "Hey, John, I want you to do not one but two movies for me this year. One which is going to be an adventure film. We've done a lot of those, and one's going to be a war film. We've done a lot of those. So give me two good ones, and I think we got two good ones, and the other one might come up later, might not. But I think it's interesting how he like kind of just it's in his wheelhouse, but I think there's an extra added element to it being animated that kind of helps too. I think I read somewhere that like this is one of the only films where a lot of the score was figured out before the animation was. So they had the screenplay written and they had the story written, but then they were like, you know what? Let's hear the score. This is like the old Disney way, because they used to do this with the Disney animated movies where like, let's hear the score and then let's try to like make our action set pieces around it, because this is the luxury of we can make it all afterwards because it's animation. You're not actually filming real actors, so there's a little mocap stuff, but I really thought that was an interesting approach to the actual filmmaking. But in terms of the actual score itself, I think some of his other adventure themes, we already have two on the list with Jaws and Raiders, like this really like kind of swashbuckling feel, I think are a little stronger than this one. But what I think is the most underrated part of the Tintin score is the opening. It kind of borrows a lot of like 1920s and 30s jazz influences, which I really, really like, but I wish they almost kind of kept that going throughout, because then it just becomes more of like the status quo adventure stuff, and that stuff is really good, obviously John Williams, but it's not like, so to say, like there's no motif that you can just like cling on to and be like, that's the Tintin score, it's very much aiding the context of the film when you're watching it, but not as good separate from it. So it's a no for me, but it's a solid pick, at least to bring up to mention.
And Chad, what would you say about Tintin?
Well, I'm a little disappointed because this was the other one I was thinking about bringing up. I listened to the score. Yeah, because I knew it was going to be more of an underrated one, and I was listening to the score on its own, and then I was watching the movie, and I have to watch the rest of the movie because I just watched kind of like the first part of it, and then I was like, man, like John Williams, like doing like just the opening credits for this, it really sets you on like just a really like a lot of excitement to want to watch the rest of the movie. And I was just like really, really vibing with it. And then I was just like, just ready for the rest of the movie. Like, yeah, like big, fun, jazzy kind of score. And so maybe that doesn't continue for the rest of it. I can't remember. But I'm interested to watch the movie and see because I don't think that a recurring motif has to be a part of it. Like I think it can be a great score without that. Like, it feels like a lot of people sometimes have been kind of like saying, it's just that one motif and the rest of the score I don't really remember. And then it's like, if it doesn't have that motif, then it's like, well, it doesn't have a motif. So it's like I don't know what people want sometimes. I'm like, do you want the motif or not? Like, I can see how it's like maybe it's not the best just listening to it on its own, but I remember really enjoying it. So I would have given it a yes, but I understand it's not as memorable as a lot of other John Williams scores. And we have well, we still got like 6 more that we can pick, but still.
And we have to have a Star Wars, so we really have 5 more.
Well, we don't have to. Yeah,
we don't
do.
have to, but I feel like we'd all get killed by the internet.
That's a significant portion of his filmography. Yeah, kind of have to.
It's funny. It's another one that John Williams was nominated for Oscar for that just doesn't make this list.
He's been nominated a lot of times.
The most.
Like 50, right?
I think we'll be okay.
But John, what is the next movie you're going to bring out?
Well, I'm going to pick one that he did win for. Another one that he did win for. And I believe this was the last one he won for, which is really like, wow, this is surprising. It's a somber one, but it's an important one. And while we have a lot of wistful, adventurous scores, it's a somber score. It's an important score. It's a haunting score. And it definitely fits the mold of what this movie is symbolized. And I'm talking about the Holocaust drama Schindler's List. And I will say this, that I talked about it a lot of times in different episodes. I will say that without Itzhak Perlman's violin, haunted violin, and his score, his variations of the score, this movie wouldn't have worked, with the chorus, with the finale. It just leaves you moved with tears, basically, in both sadness and also a bit of hope that the remaining Jews have a future. So, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but Schindler's List, this should be on the top 12.
I forgot he didn't win for the Fabelmans. Some reason I had in my head that he won for the Fabelmans. I don't know why, but anyway,
Who won the score for that one? Oh, It's All Quiet on the Western Front. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dylan's favorite.
But yeah, it's going to be a while before we get to that composer's ranking episode. So what do you say about Schindler's List?
Yeah, this is a yes for me as well. This is definitely one, like, when you think Spielberg and Williams, you think of the excitement, the adventure, and then you've got this, which both movie and score are haunting. I love the story that Steven Spielberg would be so bummed out from filming this that Robin Williams had to call him and cheer him up. This is a yes for me.
Dylan, what do you say about Schindler's List?
Yeah, it's an absolute yes. I think this is one of the most scaled back scores, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's very stripped down. It's just kind of that violin, kind of it almost feels like a crying voice, because the violin is the closest thing we have to the human voice in terms of sound from an instrument. And I think that is just so beautiful. It's almost like this crying kind of agony, sadness coming out of this violin, and it's so stunning and so beautiful. And that main theme, how it hits all three of those octaves and then ends on that really, really high note. It's so beautiful. But the rest of the score is really nice too. I mean, like, all those moments are fueled, by the score, and it doesn't cross the line of emotional manipulation either, because admittedly some scores that he does with Spielberg do at times cross that line to where it just feels a little too much, whereas I don't think it ever crosses that line here. I think it's very respectful to the culture, letting it speak for itself, but also still aiding in the drama without trying too hard to be emotionally manipulative, because it doesn't really have to be. The story itself is going to make you cry no matter what, but I really like the restraint he uses with the instrumentation. I know a lot of the music we hear just diegetically versus non-diegetically in the film, there's some stuff that isn't his. It's like folk songs, like Yiddish folk songs and stuff that he then kind of adapted, but it's kind of similar to Home Alone. It's like you're kind of taking motifs of different people's backgrounds and cultures and kind of culminating it in one. And I think it's a really, really stunning kind of, not just presentation of sadness and grief, but also of Jewish culture, because this is also Spielberg, and you want to be respected to his heritage. And I have a fun quote here that I was reading when I was researching this, where John Williams, when he was asked to do this, said, "You need a better composer than I am for this film," and Spielberg responded with, "I know, but they're all dead." Like, he was like, you're basically the best living composer we have now to do this, which is, I think, a huge compliment. It's a backhanded compliment, but it is a compliment. Like, you know what? I could have Mozart or Bach do this, or Rachmaninoff, but they're all gone. So it's you, buddy. But I really think that's so beautiful that, like, John Williams himself was so moved and so emotional that he almost couldn't do it, because it's a tough task. You have a lot of responsibility in your hands, but he does such a good job, and it's such a stunning score. This was near the top of my list, but I knew it would come up, so I didn't bring it up yet. But this amazing score. Amazing. Yes.
Chad, what do you say about Schindler's List?
Yeah, it's not a score or a movie that, I mean, I've seen the movie once. It's not a score movie that, like, I would listen to, like, regularly, that I would, remember that much from it, particularly or personally. But, like, it's also not a movie that I think most people just love to revisit, because it's, so, real and heavy. And I feel like that's exactly what the score, just like listening to it a little bit here while people were talking, it just kind of like has that, heaviness, and creates that atmosphere of, somber, and just like where everybody has the whole, oh, what, you're sad, let me play you the small violin, tiniest violin. It's kind of like, exactly what Dylan said, is like, that is a lot of the times that is the instrument of sadness, and he uses it heavily in there, and I just think it works so well. And pretty much, even if I like was on the no side of it, which I wasn't, I was on the yes side the whole time, but like Dylan just talking about all that would have converted me to a yes, because that's just all a lot of really great information of behind the scenes. Sometimes that helps, like, to know that, like, the composer, like, really, really wanted to, like, treat it with respect, and just a lot of people really wanting to treat this real life tragedy in a very important and real way. So I don't know. I think it's a very good score, even though I also don't think that it has a lot of things that people are humming, because they probably don't even want to, even if they could pull out some, because why would people make themselves sad on purpose? So there you go.
I mean, I think John Williams would be tarred and feathered in the street if he did something bombastic like Harry Potter theme for Schindler's List.
Oh God! Now I can just picture. Oh no! Why?
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
But yeah, Schindler's List is an easy yes for me. Just for, if everyone's already said it, like, it was a score that was really fitting of the movie, and yeah, he deserved to win. So it's going to make the list. So do we go back to you for your next nomination?
Yeah, it's one I'm surprised that hasn't come up yet. It is the first John Williams score I ever loved before I knew who composed it, because it came out when I was 5 years old, and I'll always remember sitting front row and watching this film. And I'm not going to name it; I'm just going to sing it. Da-na-na, da-na-na.
Same year as Schindler's List.
Same year, right before, amazingly enough. But like that is a movie. You hear those and you can think of the specific scenes, like when you first meet the Brachiosaur, or the very first time you see the gates open for Jurassic Park, and you hear the iconic bum, 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 ba-da-bum, ba-da-da-dum. This is as close to perfect as it gets. For me, for a score, like it's just got so many. I couldn't tell you the titles of them, but it's got so many iconic motifs and threads that I can say it's both whimsical and lovely, and oh my god, look what they've done, and an absolute star screaming terror at the same time. Jurassic Park has to be on this list. This is like Mount Rushmore of scores, in my opinion.
Dylan, what do you say about Jurassic Park?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most iconic ones when we're talking like iconography. I mean, that score, you started singing it. I knew you were going to, but like you started singing it, and I immediately like went to that like place in the movie. And it's really interesting because like it was, like we said, the same year as Schindler's List, and I think it was like probably the fastest it ever got into production in terms of like he wrote the score, and then like a month later he was like, all right, we're orchestrating it, we're recording it, because he was also doing Schindler's List. But it doesn't show, it doesn't feel rushed. It feels like well thought out. Everything feels thought out. I like how he had such good experience with Jaws and with the Nazis and Raiders in creating that like dark looming presence, that he said the T-Rex stuff was like easy, whereas the harder stuff was like trying to evoke that excitement of seeing dinosaurs, because most people's first introduction to seeing dinosaurs visualized, if they hadn't read picture books, was this movie. And I think you need to create that sense of awe and excitement that an audience member would feel seeing these things for the first time, and he does that really well, to where it's iconic, it's memorable. It's not my favorite of their collaborations, but I think it definitely deserves to be on this list, so I'm a yes.
Chad, what do you say about Jurassic Park?
Yeah, I'm absolutely a yes for this as well. Just the, da-na-na-na-na, just like that whole thing when I was listening to the score, I was like, you know what? This, like, I'd never thought about this before, but I was like, like film scores, I was like, this score to me has the ability to just like wipe away my anxiety. And I was like, this just has such a calming, like the Welcome to Jurassic Park track, just, in particular, I was like, this just has such a calming, nature, kind of like with the Sorcerer's Stone with, like the music that's like, I'm home kind of a deal. I feel like that's kind of like what this is as well. It's like, and just the awe and wonder, but like, like this is, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but maybe someone gets what I'm putting out there. But I was like, I could just listen to the score and it would just like make me feel better. It's like such a great piece of music outside of the movie and incorporated in it as well. So I love this one actually. So yes.
You're muted.
Muted, Malcolm.
I mean, the whole time I realized I had the wrong microphone attached to it because so I was muting my mic. I was like, then I realized, hang on, it's my webcam's the one that's attached. But this is one I knew for sure was going to come up eventually. So I wasn't too worried about it not making the list. And yeah, the score for Jurassic Park is really good, and so yeah, it's an easy yes for me. Jonathan, what do you say about Jurassic Park?
Make it unanimous, yes. Now I will say this. It is quite memorable in many scenes. Especially the scene where Nedry is hacking. I think that's an underrated piece of music. He basically hacks into the system, stealing the embryos. Yeah, I think that's underrated. Now here's a little story. So I thought my first movie in theaters was G.I. Jane because that's what I remembered visually. However, my parents told a story to me a few years ago that they couldn't find a babysitter for me when I was a baby. So I guess in existence, this was my first theater experience. They basically took me, they took me as a baby to Jurassic Park in the theaters.
Like it's like literal baby.
No. They said that I was very quiet, so I wasn't crying.
Wow.
So I guess that says something about me regarding loud movies. Like I'm very calm and peaceful during loud movies in the theater. So like, doesn't scare me. Maybe except for a couple times, but yeah, it was like wow, that kind of surprised me. Like Jurassic Park was my very first movie in existence as a baby. So, but yeah, it's a yes for Jurassic Park. It's a memorable piece.
Yeah, no, my aunt and uncle took me to see that, and yeah, we were sitting front row center for that movie, and I'm like 5 years old when it comes out, so I'm the right age, and yeah, that's the movie for us. Like that's when film started existing for me. Was that movie, that moment? Like it's burned in my head. The irony being, my aunt and uncle can't stand each other now and haven't spoken in 15 years, but that's besides the point.
But with that, Jurassic Park does make the list. Dylan, we go back to you. What is the next movie you're going to bring up?
Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got 8 on there now, so we got 4 spots left. One of them is going to be a Star Wars, which y'all will get to. But I'm going to bring up one now. I can finally get a little bit more personal. It's interesting because like we talk so much about like John Williams creating this and creating that, but I also think it takes a lot to adapt a score and to actually take something that already exists and make it great and even better. And I'm talking about 1971's Fiddler on the Roof. This is the first film he won an Oscar for, and that was back when there was original score and adaptation of a score. And it is obviously an adaptation of the original Stein, Bach, and Harnick musical Fiddler on the Roof. I have a very deep connection to Fiddler on the Roof because it was like my senior year musical. I played Tevye, and it was like this really emotional moment for me in my life, a big turning point. It's what made me decide to pursue theater in college and then ultimately in life. So it was like a huge turning point, and that music is so stunning and so personal to me, but it is very barren. It's, in a musical, you have maybe 20 instruments max, and that's if you're lucky in your great auditorium. In my high school we had like 6 instruments, so it's in a theater setting it's really beautiful and really amazing, but there's only so much you can do. Now we get to the movie and John Williams gets the score and he has to kind of amp it up a little, and he adds all these instruments. He adds probably 4 times as many instruments as this original musical had, and he takes not only the themes and the songs themselves and the orchestrations of the musical songs, but adds his own different motifs to it. And I think it's just a stunning adaptation of a beautiful score already that is made even better by a master kind of molding it into his own, to where when you listen to it, it does sound very John Williams-esque. It has all those trademarks. It has a similar instrumentations you hear in other films, but it is still kind of harkening back to the original music that was made for the musical. But what I also love is we have Schindler's List on here, which I talked about was like a very emotional piece, but a very respectful one to Jewish culture. This does have very sad moments toward the end, but it's mostly a celebration of Jewish culture in a positive light. You get a lot of that authentic Jewish sounds and instrumentations and scales and chords that are found a lot in like old Yiddish music and tradition. I mean, the whole movie's about tradition. The whole opening number is called Tradition. There's that whole obvious famous dance move, and I love how he kind of plays into the Jewish traditions and feels like a very honorable and respectful cultural demonstration as well, to where there's only one John Williams score I don't like, and it's because I feel it's a little culturally insensitive. Like maybe they should have had someone of a certain descent make the score, not him. But in this sense, I think he really pays great respect to this Jewish culture and really gives you a flavor for their lifestyle while also bringing his own unique sensibilities to it. So Fiddler on the Roof is my nomination. Also to get a score that's adapted on this list, since it's all been original so far.
I'm actually curious to see what for what score that you didn't like for John Williams.
I don't know if we'll bring it up, so I won't say
I
it.
think I
It
think
starts
I
with an
think
A.
one.
I'll give a hint. It starts with an A.
Always?
No.
I don't remember that being
Ding, 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 Malcolm. Amistad. They should have had a black composer make it, but
Yeah, I get that.
But Chad, what do you say about Fiddle on the Roof?
Yeah, unlike Dylan, I don't have like a big attachment to this movie or the music or anything. I knew Dylan was going to bring this up because he tried to get me to listen to the music. I did listen to what you sent me, Dylan, but I didn't listen to the entire score. And I liked what I heard, but like it's not one that I was like, that has to be on a list or anything like that personally. But I mean, that being said, I'm fine with giving this a slight yes. And the reason I'm doing that is because a lot of what you said is actually like, kind of cool. And I really think that would be a really interesting pick to have on the list. That's something not a lot of people would think of, I think. They would think of the Supermans and the Potters and the ETs and the Jurassic Parks, but they probably wouldn't think of Fiddler on the Roof. And even though I don't have that much of a connection, I know on our show Picture This, we will eventually get to it. And maybe I'll change my tune then, and I'll really, really enjoy it, and change my mind on the music as well. But you're right; it is cool that like he adapted like a musical to the screen and had to take music that wasn't his and like kind of rework it. And I just think it shows. Like I said with the Jaws and him doing like a horror score, something kind of different. This is also different and a different kind of muscle that I think you have to use as a composer sometimes that shows why he's so versatile and probably the greatest composer ever. So yeah, sure.
I have one last thing to add and then I'll shut up. It's awesome because it's called Fiddler on the Roof. Like the fiddler's in the title, and it's not a big part of the movie. It's more like a background, like a symbol for something. But I love how he goes full throttle with that and says, you know what, it's about it's the fiddler's in the title. I'm gonna make the fiddle or the violin such a much more dynamic presence in the film. Like the fiddle is used, I think, even better in the movie than it is in the musical in terms of the actual presence of the fiddle and the kind of instrumentation and gymnastics that the fiddle does in the movie. It's really cool. So
yeah, nowadays you'll get in trouble for fiddling on the roof.
Good joke.
But it was one of those ones like, should I say it? Shouldn't I? Yeah, I'll say it. But yeah, I mean, I know I've seen Fiddler on the Roof. This is one of those ones like, I struggle to differentiate the score from the actual music. I know he probably sort of did the music for the songs as well. I assume. So for that, I'm going to give it a slight no, just because I haven't seen the movie in ages and I don't really remember it that well anyway, as it is. But Jonathan, what do you say about Fiddler on the Roof?
I haven't seen it, so I don't know the music, and I haven't seen the play either. I know my sister hasn't. She recommended it to me, so now hearing from you, Dylan, now I have to see it.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're interested
now. Because it comes down to Soda. Soda, what do you say about Fiddler on the Roof?
I also have not seen it. This is one of those. I'm a big music theater guy, but this is one of those weird blind spots where people are like, "Really, you haven't seen that?" John Williams' career pre-Jaws is very interesting, and this is probably the most interesting on it. Like, he did episodes of Lost in Space. He composed themes for Mount Hope. He even did the theme for the LA Olympics. Like, quite the eclectic career, this man. And this is probably the one that sticks out the most. Yeah, I know I have to get off my ass and watch it.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like his career pre-Jaws back when he was just known as Johnny Williams.
Yep.
Johnny Williams, yep.
Because he did the score for How to Steal $1 Million, Valley of the Dolls, probably the two bigger known ones. He did one of the early Jane Eyres he did.
Gilligan's Frickin' Island.
Mm-hmm.
Towering Inferno.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Whether or not some of this is what Chad's going to bring up next, I don't know. But Chad, what are you going to bring up next?
Oh shit, it's me. I forgot it was me. Um, what am I gonna bring up next? Oh, you know what? I know what I'm gonna bring up next. I'll go with a very recent one. I'll go with the Fablemans. I think this one is a very interesting one because I think it's very similar to Schindler's List, not in tone, but in like that where in Schindler's List, you know, it's a lot of violin. I feel like the Fablemans is just a lot of like piano. And I just think, you know, especially with like, you know, they had like that one like kind of like montage kind of a deal where he was like, you know, seeing his family together happy or whatever. Just like the way that the score was used, like and stuff like that, I just think is like really, really, really good. It's also kind of a short score, but honestly, I think because if I'm unless I'm wrong and I watched or listen to an abbreviated version of the score, it was only like 30 minutes long, which is like
No, you're right.
half of what most of them are. But honestly, I think it's kind of a short but sweet kind of a score here. So yeah, I really enjoy that movie a lot. I ranked it very highly in among my best picture slate. I can't remember. It was like 2 or 3, I think, Dylan. Right? I know it's your one, but yeah. For the music itself, I just think it's very beautiful and it flows very well with the film, and I really enjoyed listening to it. So the Fablemans, why not, right?
Yeah, I actually do really enjoy their Fablemans. Without sort of checking Letterboxd and that, but I'm almost certain it was my number one movie of last year. I really enjoyed the Fablemans that much. But the score itself is another one that that I thought was really sort of understated, and I think it worked for the movie because of it's one of those ones like Fablemans is a personal movie for Spielberg itself, and for him to get John Williams to sort of score it, it's like it really says a lot. Well, that and John Williams scores all of Spielberg's movies as it is, but it just really says a lot for Spielberg to get John Williams to score this movie that's really personal for himself. And yeah, like Fablemans was my number one movie of last year as well. But so I'm actually going to say yes. I do think it's a really good, and in my opinion, it probably should have won best score at the Oscars. But Jonathan, what do you say about the Fablemans?
I think there was one other score that was better than both All Quiet and the Fablemans, and that should have won. Talking about Babylon, but anyway, I digress. I actually did like the Fablemans score. John Williams. Now you got me to that face. Pre-60s or 70s right there. John Williams score is lovely, but the thing is, you just said it's short but sweet. It's just I remember it in the back half of the movie, and it's a long movie. Like I remember it with him talking with his mother about the prom, the proposal, and then the ending itself, which is actually kind of a funny ending. Probably one of the best Spielberg endings for sure. The middle is boring as shit. However, while it is a lovely score, I put it in the bottom of my runners-up list. And again, John Williams has a lot of memorable scores, and it is pretty recent in my opinion. So I think that I'm going to go with slight no, but it is a really good pick. I think it's an underrated pick, and yeah, it's a slight no.
But Soda, what do you say about the Fablemans?
I have to refrain from this because while it is on my list, I have not gotten around to seeing it yet.
And Dylan, it comes down to you. What do you say about the Fablemans?
Yeah, I always get emotional talking about the Fablemans, so I'll try to keep it brief. I love this movie. I love the score. The reason the score is so short is because a lot of the music in the film, half of it is like actual compositions that she's like learning how to play. So the original music is short and sweet, but there is a very big presence of music. It's kind of like the Close Encounters thing I mentioned, where like the mother was music, the dad was science, and I think this is a love letter to his family while also kind of unlocking a deep truth about his family that he's been scared to admit. But it's like what you all have said. Like, there's a respect there that John Williams gives Spielberg. You know, they've been collaborating now. This is their 50th anniversary, I believe. I think Sugarland Express was 74, I think. So maybe not 50th. It was almost a 50th anniversary. So, you know, they've been working together for 50 years. And I think there's something to be said about, let's strip it back. No brass, no horns, no woodwinds. Let's do the piano and keep it simple. And there's some strings in there at times, but it's really, really stunning. And I love the motif, the dun da da dun, dun da da dun. Like, it's really sweet, really understated, like Malcolm said. So it's not like an astounding, like, this is the best score ever. Yes, it's so epic, but I think for the movie it's in, and for the simplicity and the beautiful just harmonies and melodies, it's so beautiful. So I'm gonna say yes, absolutely yes.
That famous does make the
Sacrifice
list.
one. Ah, man. Damn. How do I sacrifice?
Ooh. 3 more left, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to eventually start talking about Star Wars.
I mean, we should, but
I thought
No.
about bringing one up, and I was like, I'll leave that for other people.
yeah, I mean,
I think that's what
Yeah,
we're all
I
doing.
mean,
and we're
I
gonna
mean,
get to
we
12
should-
and
I
be
mean,
like,
We're
"Oh,
going
shit."
for 11 spots, and then we'll talk about Star Wars.
I mean,
I'm down for that.
I mean, we should eventually talk about Star Wars, but I'm not. I hope we're talking about Catch Me If You Can, because I think this is I think the score for this movie is just really good. It's one of those ones like when I heard that John Williams was going to do this score, I wasn't too sure if it was going to fit the movie. But it really worked as well. Like just the opening theme alone is just a lot of that whimsical nature. It kind of it really does bring into the old like changing of jobs quickly just to keep up that whole chase thing. But I think the rest of the score in Catch Me If You Can is great, and I think it definitely deserves to be on this list. Jonathan, what do you say about Catch Me If You Can?
That was my next nomination. Because the other one that I was going to choose, it is kind of similar in a way to his other works with Spielberg, but I'm going to choose the jazzy theme and, be different. And because I enjoy that score a lot. The opening credits is a kind of a master class in itself because of the music and also because of the graphics. But also he has variations of the tone regarding from fantastical childlike discovery of what he can do in this world as a teenager. Like he could forge checks to sadness, where he finds about certain things like one like divorce, a death, and then also his doomed present when he has to be assigned to Carl Hanratty in the FBI. And I think that John Williams captures DiCaprio's arc, his journey really well, from the divorce to his quote unquote job journeys, I guess, from a pilot to a doctor to a lawyer. So it is a yes for me. This was actually my wild card. So I think this is an underrated Spielberg-Williams collaboration, and I wouldn't be mad, but if it doesn't make the list. But yeah, I'm gonna go yes.
But Soda, what do you say about Catch Me If You Can?
Well, I'm gonna have to go no, just because I've seen the movie like once, and that was years ago, so I don't remember the score, unfortunately.
It holds up.
Dylan, what do you say about Catch Me If You Can?
It's funny, for this rankum, I could technically partake because I listened to the score, but I've actually never seen the movie. It's like one of the mega blind spots in my film watching. I have no idea why I haven't seen it. I've seen the musical many times. I love the musical. Maybe that's
High
why.
School actually just did the musical 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's great. So I know the story and I like know the characters and stuff, but like, I've never actually seen the movie. So yeah, because it's always like one of those things where I want to throw it on, but it's like just long enough to where I can't just throw it on before bed or anything like that. I really want to commit to it. I'm always too tired to commit to that length. So I'll abstain, but it's a good score. I think they used the first track in like The Simpsons, because I remember watching a Simpsons episode and being like, "This sounds really good," and I'm like, "Oh, it's Tom Williams," and I realized it was from Catch Me If You Can.
That's
but
an excellent.
I want to check it out, but I'm gonna say no only because I haven't seen the movie.
Which means it falls on Chad. Chad, what do you say about Catch Me If You Can?
I'm going to give this one a yes, actually. Reason being is because, and Dylan, we'll get there when we do our ranking. You'll finally get to see Catch Me If You Can, because I think this movie is actually pretty excellent. I love the movie in particular. It's just very fun, and I haven't seen like The Aviator. That's the other like Leo one I haven't seen. I know it's not Spielberg, but this one is kind of similar to that, where he plays an actual person who did a lot of stuff. But yeah, the music in particular, I was just listening to some of it, and it looks like it uses like a good, or at least one of the tracks uses a lot of like kind of like saxophone and like xylophone and stuff like that. It kind of, I'm not surprised that Malcolm nominated this one, because it actually reminded me a lot of like 1010. Kind of just a very kind of fun, like you're about to go on an adventure or you just were on an adventure kind of a deal, kind of a fun saxophone-y, like, kind of thing. And you're going on a trip, which he does a lot in the movie, goes on trips and stuff. So yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a fun score. Actually, you know what? It kind of reminded me a little bit of like Soul too. Like, that movie, like, kind of like a jazzy kind of, old style score. So yeah, I really dug that one. I'll say yeah.
And with that, Catch Me If You Can does make the list. Got 2 spots left. Jonathan, what is the next movie you're going to bring up?
Okay. I'm not going to bring up Star Wars. I want to save it. No, someone has to save that for the last, because then we'll get into
I agree. That one we can debate over which one deserves.
Which one is it? It's not going to be Phantom Menace, obviously.
What if we just get through all 9 and we're like, shit, we said no to all of them.
The Rise of Skywalker.
His one theme for Solo.
You could make an argument for Rise of Skywalker, actually.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Anyway, Jonathan, what are you going to bring up?
If this is not okay, if this is shut down, obviously there's another big one that hasn't been brought up aside from Star Wars. But I'm gonna bring this one because this is not one. We have a lot of Spielberg Williams collaborations, but I think this one is underrated. And he collaborated with Oliver Stone a couple of times, and I'm gonna bring up JFK. So his score for JFK is a very unique one, and he, aside from Oliver Stone's frantic conspiracy theories of who assassinated JFK, who's behind it, his score is quite propelling. It propels the narrative forward very much. It advances those 3 hours pretty quickly with his dut 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 bum 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 bum, and I don't know. It's a very unique score, and I think that aside from that one, there are other pieces of music that's done very well. Even the opening theme, and then the drum that. So, yeah, like I said before, if this is shot down, I'm okay with it, and because there is another big one aside from Star Wars that we haven't mentioned, and yeah, I'm gonna just shoot my shot for. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I'm gonna just go for JFK. For this one. Yeah, I shouldn't.
Yeah, you soon.
Yeah.
Soda, what do you say about JFK?
So again, I have to refrain from this one because while it is on my list to the point that I actually have purchased it digitally, I have not watched it.
Dylan, what do you say about JFK?
Yeah, the movie's amazing. I love the movie. I watched it. Chad and I watched it for Picture This, and I just loved it. I loved how it was a different type of biopic than we're used to seeing, in the fact that it wasn't a biopic. It was more of, you know, a fictionalized version of history. Fiction, nonfiction, that's up to you to decide. But I do think the John Williams score is so good. Yeah, like the use of percussion, like Jonathan hit on, was just such a good use of percussion. I just haven't listened to it enough to give it a yes, only because there are still so many scores that I regularly listen to, that JFK is not one of those. But I wish I had thought of it to like go back, because I listened to all these scores, but I didn't spend time actually like listening to this one. So it's part of, that's on me. That's my fault. But it is such a good score, and especially in the context of the film. So it's gonna be a slight no, but I love that you brought it up. Good pick.
Chad, what do you say about the score for JFK?
Yeah, this one's actually interesting because this was Dylan and I don't always disagree, but like this is one of like the big ones. I feel like we like kind of like diametrically were opposed to a film. Like I just really didn't vibe with this one at all, and I felt like the 3 hours was like very, very long. But that being said, you know, that doesn't really have much to do with the score. It could still be a really good score, even though, you know, I didn't really care for the I might not be an Oliver Stone person, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah. That being said, you know, I don't know how memorable or good the score is. I was listening to a couple tracks. I thought they were pretty good, but you know, I kind of like Dylan. I just don't know if like it's one of those where I would definitely say yes for top 12. And I don't even know like how many more I would even bring up personally, but I'm sure there are a couple others that could be on other than JFK, even though I do also respect the
back
pick.
and to the left. Back to the left.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen JFK once. Like it's one of those ones like I like the score enough, but I still have to give it a slight no. Just wasn't in my sort of top 15 area where I was going to say yes to it. So yeah, unfortunately, JFK doesn't make the list. You move over to Soda. What are you going to bring up, and why is it Star Wars?
I just want to say, while I have not seen JFK, I have seen the Oliver Stone documentary that came out a couple of years ago about what the redacted evidence, which I thought was really good. Yeah, so this one, only thing I've got left that's not Star Wars or tentpole is one that I don't think many people actually know he did the score for, and that is Roland Emmerich's The Patriot. I love that movie. I think it's very underrated. It is not as good as Braveheart, but I still think it is good enough. I just like the themes that he uses in the score. I like how it has reflections of its time. So yeah, I want to add The Patriot to the list. And I do want to say Colonel Tavington is one of my most hated villains in all of film from that movie. For burning down the church with everybody in it, the son of a bitch.
Dylan, what do you say about The Patriot?
This is another one like Catch Me If You Can, where I've never seen the movie, but I did listen for the score for this because it's on a lot of top 10 lists when I was just like doing some research. But it wasn't anything where I listened to it and I was like, it has to make the list. Though I did like kind of the use of like kind of older Americana type themes in the score. It was an interesting departure from a lot of his other stuff. But it's not enough for me to say yes, but it's a cool pick. Malcolm's muted.
Chad, what's up with you?
So this is one I feel like I've seen more bits and pieces than I have the entire movie. And just I tried like listening to a track, but I don't even think that would be enough, even if that was like the best track I've ever heard to, you know, make me want to do like a blind yes. So unfortunately I just haven't seen it. So I'll just abstain.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie. I just myself to listen to a little bit of the score. It's a really good score. And yeah, so I don't mind saying yes to it. So yeah, Jonathan, what do you say about The Patriot?
So it's up to me then. Oh,
yeah.
You kind of spoiled a scene for me, Soda. because I haven't seen it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize
brutal.
spoilers were up for
I was
movies
like,
that are 10 years old.
dang, that is brutal. I mean,
Yeah,
it reminds me
it's
of it.
honestly one of Jason Isaac's best roles.
That I've heard.
Yeah.
But I've seen like bits and pieces of it on television, but then I had to leave.
And like school and stuff. Yeah.
But not that scene, so I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
It does that scene though it reminds me of that haunting masterpiece, Come and See, which you can see only once. But I have not listened to the score for that movie, so I'm gonna abstain. So obviously, yeah,
all good.
But
it was definitely one of those Hail Mary picks for sure.
Yeah. Late in the game.
But if that, Dylan, we go back to you. What is your next nomination?
It sucks because I want to like vary up the directors a little bit here, but like my next one on my list is that's not Star Wars, is a Spielberg one. So I'm like, I'm gonna do it. It's actually their first collaboration, Sugarland Express. I think the use of the harmonica and like the folky type instrumentations and music is so interesting because like when you think John Williams, you think, you know, brass and horns and winds and strings. You don't think like kind of chilling, sitting, playing the harmonica, very almost Deliverance like. I really like that. I think it's a really cool departure from all his other scores, and it is their first. So I think there's like a charm in the fact that it's like the first collaboration between the two, and it's one of the only scores, if not the only score between the two of them, the collaborations, that doesn't have its own soundtrack, because at the time, like, he wasn't a well-known director, so it wasn't like they put out records for the Sugarland Express. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to like watch the movie to hear it, or you can like find like, I think the first opening title theme track is there. So if you haven't seen the movie, it's tougher to find the score online, but the main theme is there, and I suggest listening to the main theme because it's so good. But I assume most people haven't seen it, or haven't listened to it. Even if you've seen the movie, it might not stick in your head, but it's just so different that I wanted to bring it up.
Chad, what do you say about Sugarland Express?
Yeah, definitely respect the late in this another like kind of late in the game pick where it's like, I don't know if people have seen it, but I personally like this. I think it's really good. Let's see if maybe I can throw in that 11th spot. But yeah, no, I'm just like that I haven't seen it either. But I'm going to soon. So there you go.
I also haven't seen Sugarland Express, but I did just listen to this a few bits of the score just before. I mean, I do, and I think the score is actually pretty interesting score. It makes me want to see the movie a little bit more because I kind of want to see what the movie is about now. But just based on what I've heard, I might actually give this a slight yes to see what happens. Jonathan, what do you say about Sugarland Express?
So you just listened to it a few minutes ago?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
That's why he's muted.
A few minutes makes a difference. That's what I always say. I mean, hey, never know. I haven't seen the movie. This is one of the 3 Spielberg movies I haven't seen. So I have listened to a piece of the score, with the harmonica. It's a very unique one, a very catchy one, but I don't listen to it as much, so I'm gonna go no.
Soda, what do you say about Sugarland Express?
I too have to abstain because this is the only reason I know this film's existence is because of its historic significance. So I have to abstain. Not that I don't want to see it; it's just that's basically my only context for it is that it's the first collaborations of the two of the best in their respective fields. So,
but with that, Chad, we go to you for the next nomination.
Still
got 2 spots left.
Yep, I didn't think it was going to get back to me before like a Star Wars would come up, so I'm just going to go for Star Wars now. I don't really see why not. I feel like there are a couple other scores that people haven't brought up that aren't Star Wars, but that could be worthy ones. But you know what? I'm gonna throw one out there. I'm gonna see if it's because it's probably not the one that because it's not going to be in the original trilogy. So I'm going Disney sequel series, and I'm going to go with The Force Awakens.
Yes.
The reason why I'm going with this is because I absolutely adore this film. I think it was a brilliant return to the franchise, and while I understand the next movie was very divisive, which I personally really really love, and I don't like the third movie at all, even though I know Dylan really likes it, which is cool that one's a little divisive as well too. And there's some defenders, but with Force Awakens, I think it just I didn't love and grow up with the original, so I'm one of the ones that got to the originals and the prequels and a lot of that stuff after Force Awakens came out. So with this one, it just kind of hits me on a different level. I feel like, and it is my favorite Star Wars movie. And particularly, I think it takes what a lot of the originals had, which was the opening, theme. It has the end credits theme, and then I also really love the Rey's theme. I think is pretty incredible. And not just that, but also just a lot of the big action, adventure kind of music that I think permeates throughout the film. And while, it probably doesn't have some of the iconic stuff from the originals, I think this one is a damn good return to form for Star Wars, even though the trilogy didn't pan out to be as fantastic as the original series. But honestly, to me, I just think even just Rey's theme alone, I just think is so incredible. And I'm how you can I don't want to say elevate above the originals. I'm not even trying to say this is better than the originals, but I think this would be a worthy Star Wars to have on the list. That's my case. I think people might want to have more of the original stuff on there. So we'll see what other people say, but I love this one. So that's shooting my shot.
But yeah, I mean, there's not really a Star Wars movie in which I hate the score for. I really do like the Force Awakens score a lot. And it's one of those ones they bring in a lot of the stuff which from other movies in the franchise. I think pretty sure briefly you do hear the Imperial March a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those perfect sort of amalgamations where they bring in these new themes, reuse the old themes perfectly. So I don't mind this being the one that is on the list. So I'm going to say yes to Force Awakens. Jonathan, what do you say about Force Awakens?
Really, Rey's theme is what stood out to me in The Force Awakens. I think the Kylo's theme, I think it's better in The Last Jedi than it is in The Force Awakens. I think it's used really well. Exactly, Darth. Yeah. But that's the thing. Nothing stands out to me except for Rey's theme, and I think The Last Jedi. I think there's a few more variations, but I don't think that this may be the one. I like the score very much, but I don't think this is the one that I think is the best representation of John Williams' score, in my opinion. While it is a very good score, so because. Come on, that villainous theme. Come on. I gotta go no. I'm sorry. I have to go no, in honesty.
Soda, what do you say about Force Awakens?
Yeah, I too have to go no because it's my third favorite film and my third favorite score in the series. There's another movement in John Williams' The Planets that I think should be on this list. So let's leave it at that.
Dylan, what do you say about Force Awakens?
This is tough because Chad was going with I'm going to pick a sequel from the Disney, and I was hoping he would go with the next one only because this one, I love the Rey theme so much, and I wanted one of these sequels because that Rey theme is one of my favorites. The only thing is, and I don't know if we will talk about it, but the next film also has the Yoda theme and the Luke and Leia theme that this one doesn't. And the next one also has the Rey theme, the Kylo theme, the Imperial March, the Force theme, the opening. So I was hoping that would get picked only because that adds more. I feel like every Star Wars film you kind of add just more and more and more. The only thing is like these sequel films don't have Duel of the Fates. They don't have the Cantina. So like you're gonna leave something off no matter what, to where like Force Awakens, the Rey's theme is so solid, but I think there's other films that have more themes in general juggling. Not a bad pick though. I think it's a great score. I mean, that Rey theme is great, but also the Resistance theme, the Kylo dun 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 dun, which is essentially taking the notes from Imperial March and kind of rearranging them in a different order, which is kind of cool behind the scenes thing. So I really love the themes introduced in this film. It's just kind of like what I think Jonathan said. Like I like how they're used even better in the next one, and I think also in the next one you get a Yoda theme, you get the Luke and Leia stuff back, and you get the moment where Luke's looking at the twin suns again, where you get that theme in more full force, to where like I prefer that score. But yeah, like I love this score so much. But we're gonna be talking about some more Star Wars films, I feel. So I'll say no, but it's a great pick. It's not me saying no to Force Awakens as much as me saying yes to another film over it. You know?
I wish I had listened to the Last Jedi score, because maybe that would have been the one I nominated. So,
but yeah,
two down, 7 more to go. All right.
But yeah, I'm going to be the asshole that's going to continue to dissent from Star Wars. But I'm going to bring up one of the only other horror movie, like arguably horror movie that he's actually done. I'm bringing up Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. I think the score that John Williams did for War of the Worlds is very underrated. Like, it doesn't get talked about much, and I think it really should, because I think what he does with War of the Worlds just sort of bring the whole eeriness of like alien and aliens invading and all that. I think it really works for the movie, and it's just one of those things. And apparently John Williams, along with working with Spielberg, likes doing Spielberg alien movies. That and other alien movies too, by other directors. One that, yeah. Anyway, but I think the score for War of the Worlds is great. And I think it deserves to be on this list. Jonathan, what do you say about War of the Worlds?
That's an underrated score. Yeah, I like the score. Spielberg uses that score in both the looming. It's like E.T. in a way, except darker. It's looming that when something bad's going to happen, and then obviously in the action scenes where they're being chased by the aliens before they get vaporized, I guess. And then the scene where they're in the car, they have the only functioning car in the whole movie. It's a very solid score. That's not the one. That's not the only remaining one that I was going to pick, though. There is one big one, and I'm going to go no. I like the score very much.
Is it a big friendly score? But anyway, so what do you say about War of the Worlds?
This is actually another one I haven't seen in the Spielberg Williams catalog, so I got to abstain.
Dylan, what do you say about War of the Worlds?
I'm mad because like when I made the list of scores I wanted to listen to, for some reason I just skipped over this one. Maybe I just didn't see it, or maybe I didn't realize he scored it, but I should have, because it's Spielberg, and I believe only 3 of his movies John Williams didn't do, so I should have known. But yeah, I abstained because I didn't listen to this one in prep. I've seen the movie, but I just don't remember the score enough to comment, so abstain.
Chad, what would you have said about War of the Worlds?
Yeah, I probably would have given it a slight no, just because I haven't given it that full listen. Even though, yeah, I actually really like this movie, and I'm a big Tom Cruise fan, so I really dig it. But okay, but yeah, I'd abstain.
He has a point.
But anyway, Jonathan, what is the next score you're going to bring up?
Ooh. Dang. Do I bring Star Wars, or do I bring the other one that should be on the list?
Do the other one that should be on the list.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna leave it up to y'all in Star Wars. Y'all could decide. I'm gonna go with the one that I'm surprised it hasn't been brought up. That I felt like it's not one of the happier ones, but it's kind of a little more restrained than you think. It uses a lot of brass in various scenes, but it does so very well and does it in a patriotic sense with respect. And I'm gonna go Saving Private Ryan. Yeah, I mean, I think that the one piece that I think it's a masterpiece is Hymn to the Fallen. I think it's very well done, with the brass and then the opera singers, I guess, and the chorus. It's very well done. And then there are various moments of where you plug in the music as what it's a reminder of. Whereas, like the general finds out about Ryan missing in action, and then he finds out the news that his other brothers were killed, and he makes the decision to find Ryan and get him the hell out of there. So, and then there are other scenes that actually stood out to me, especially the spoiler alert, Hanks's death. Hanks dies, and where he says, "Earn this," and then wait.
Sorry,
both
me,
just made the
me
same
and Dylan
face.
both did
We
shock
were like,
face. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Hanks's character dies, not Hanks, but no, but he says, "Earn this," and then it kind of is moving, and then it goes back to the opening. Where it's really James Ryan as an older man visiting the cemetery. So, yeah, if there's one more Spielberg Williams collaboration that should make the list, I think it's Saving Private Ryan.
Soda, what do you say about Saving Private Ryan?
So I'm gonna say no, just for the fact that it's been so long since I've seen this movie that I don't remember the score. So that's it for me. But I mean, I wouldn't be upset if it's on the list. I wouldn't be surprised if it makes the list.
Dylan, what do you say about Saving Private Ryan?
I definitely really like the score. I think it's interesting because he makes a lot of like patriotic films, and sometimes I have a problem distinguishing some of them with one another. There's another one about a president a few years later that he did that, like, there are some films that I think feel a little similar to one another to where it's harder to distinguish, but the actual construction of the scores are beautiful. I remember reading that like it was one of the most expensive scores to produce because he like hired the whole Boston Symphony Orchestra, and it was like $100,000 per hour to record, because they really wanted the really great acoustics of the sound stage that they were using. They put a lot of effort into the score for this one specifically. And there's another thing like Jaws where you had to like pick and choose the times when to really use the score and when not to, because a lot of it is just the battle sounds, the bullets and the shooting and the explosions instead of score. And I think it's another testament to their collaboration to be able to say, oh, this is when we're going to use score versus when we're not. It's a little cheesy at times, but I get it. And I think Chad might continue that thought next. But because we've talked about this score in particular a lot, Chad and I, and Malcolm actually, because he was on our episode of Picture This where we covered this movie. But I do think this is a good score. I just think because there's so much Spielberg already, it's not one of my favorite Spielberg scores of John Williams, and there's still some other ones from other directors that I want to maybe get represented on the list. So because we're getting down to the nitty gritty, I'm going to say a slight no, even though I think it's still impressive.
Chad, what do you say about Saving Private Ryan?
I'm really on the fence with this one. I mean, like I know because like with Jonathan, like he's thinking like this should be like a shoe-in, and I agree. Like I just like one of those things where I love a majority of this film, but then I feel like there are some of the scenes, especially with the ends, with the tell me I'm a good man, that kind of thing, where it's like it gets so cheesy and almost too patriotic in a way where it's like, okay, I get it, kind of a deal. But it is also the whole thing with like, being respectful to people who've fallen and stuff like that. But also like, just like kind of like a lot of the really kind of like somber moments within like the character stuff in the like the middle of the movie that I think is brilliant. So there's a lot of like brilliance in the movie, coupled with some of the more cheesy stuff that I don't love, and kind of an overuse of horns and stuff like that I like to talk about and bring up. That I'm like, wait, there's a little bit too much horns in this, but I think it's still a really good one that I wouldn't mind seeing on there. So I'll give it a slight yes, actually. Maybe surprising, I don't know, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd listened to the episode of Picture This that I was on, you would know that I believe that this rightfully so lost Best Picture to Shakespeare in Love, because I think Shakespeare in Love is a superior movie.
I agree.
Why do you
But
go on?
But fun fact: does anyone know what John Williams' score lost to at the Oscars that year?
What year was that?
Was it Life is Beautiful?
98.
Was it Life is Beautiful?
It was Life is Beautiful because
Terrific score.
It is a terrific score.
Yeah, because in that year that was when they were still separating the scores between dramatic and musical comedy. Shakespeare in Love got musical comedy score. For some reason, Pleasantville was considered dramatic. I don't know but that's score
a tough one to classify, actually.
Yeah, but that score was nominated at the Oscars, which I find really interesting, and I'm kind of sad it didn't win after knowing that. But that being said, I'm not a fan of Saving Private Ryan. But that being said, I do think the score is fine. I don't have a problem with saying yes to the score, so I'm going to say yes to Saving Private Ryan.
All right, argue about Star Wars. Which one?
Oh boy!
But so do we go to you first?
So yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the original, not just because it lays out all the groundwork, but because it, like the movie itself, was a risk because nobody was doing full orchestral scores for films at that time. This movie did it, and like I said, it set up everything to come up afterwards. In this one, not only do you have the main credits, but you've got Binary Sunset, and you have the Force theme and Leia's theme, and so many good cues. The only thing that would make it better is if the Empire's March was in this debuted in this one. But alas, I'm going to nominate the very first Star Wars.
Dylan, what do you say about the first Star Wars movie?
This is really tough because it's obviously one of the most iconic scores ever, and there's so many great tracks. But I think there are other films that take this, the best parts of this film, and add other great parts to it, to where I don't think a lot of the music here is lost in those future films. It's so tough because, like, why would I say no to the original Star Wars? But I still think there's one or two other films that I might want to bring up that have other tracks in addition to the main opening. Because the Force theme, the main opening, are like in every single one. Yeah. There's just some themes that are recycled. Leia's theme is in most of them. But the only problem is if I say no, I'm losing the Cantina, and I love the Cantina. But I think I prefer some tracks in the other films. So I'm going to say slight no. I can't believe I'm doing that, but I'm going to say slight no. They're all great, but yeah, I'm going to say slight no just because there are some motifs and songs and themes that I am missing in this one that are made in the other ones.
Let's replay that back in slow motion.
Chad, what do you say about the original Star Wars?
No, I totally hear what Dylan's saying, and that I'm on the fence with this too, because I'm also like, on most days, the original Star Wars, none of this A New Hope bullshit, just called Star Wars, is my favorite of the original trilogy, and just like really up there as far as like, favorite Star Wars and movie. I mean, I said this would have been my best picture of that year. But I mean, Dylan makes a really good case for it's been reused in other films and had stuff even added that, could be seen as just a better full score. And that was just like the template for it. So, I kind of hear it's kind of like the Sorcerer's Stone kind of argument. So, but I don't know. I guess when I went for Sorcerer's Stone there, I think I'm going to pass and say a slight no, see what Malcolm and Jonathan say, and then maybe we might get to talk more Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, first off, if anyone had told me that an episode of Rankin on John Williams School is going to take almost the same length of time as a Spielberg movie, you would have. I would have said you were crazy because, like, looking at his filmography is like, oh yeah, there's probably 12
Nope.
picks.
There's
It's gonna go really quickly, but no, not the case.
And that's the beauty of it because there's so many great John Williams scores. That's why he's the freaking GOAT.
I have a long runners up list.
Oh yeah,
a long one.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I do really like the OG Star Wars themes. This is one of those. Funny enough, I am going to do what Chad did with Harry Potter because it is the one that set the groundwork for what to expect for the other Star Wars movies going forward. Like, well, yes, there is some themes that come up in the later movies that you don't have in this one. I think the themes that we do have in this one is really good, and I think it. Like, if Phantom Menace can't make it on, I think it has to be the original Star Wars. So I'm going to go Star Wars. So it's come down to Jonathan. What do you say about Star Wars?
Ooh. Yes. It's all on me. All right.
You look like Palpatine there.
You look like a Sith there, yeah.
I think that was his whole intention.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. It's waiting to go into that.
I have the power. Of which side, though? Very great situation here. So obviously this is the one that started it all. I mean, we used the opening theme in all of the episodes. So regardless if it's great, regardless if it's good, or regardless if it's bad. Now, but there are various pieces of music that also carry on through the movies ahead of them. I mean, look, aside from the Imperial March, which is introduced to Empire Strikes Back, and it's it is interesting that Vader's not the primary villain of the Star Wars. It's really Tarkin, if you think about it. So that's why the Imperial March is not used, or Vader theme is not used as much. I'm going to say this out of respect. I think if we're going to agree respectfully as to we're not going to agree like which Star Wars is represent the whole list. But I think that without this, we wouldn't have as many passionate fans or dividers for this franchise without this movie, the one that started it all. I mean, legions of fans are either in love with this franchise or just constant defense of certain episodes because of the first movie. Say as you will as to which one's better, but everybody will be in agreement that John Williams' score is the constant throughout all of the episodes. So, and that's why I'm going to say yes to this, because I think that it's a representation, a culmination of all of the Star Wars fandom, regardless if you like Star Wars, love Star Wars, even hate Star Wars or defend Star Wars or come to terms with certain movies like The Last Jedi, like I did. I like The Last Jedi, but with more viewings, I actually think it's one of the best Star Wars movies. So I think, just to be fair, I'm going to say yes to this one.
And yeah, if that Star.
It's just called Star Wars. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's everything. All of the movies.
Yeah. It's representative. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, depending on which way you go about it, it's either Star Wars or Star Wars: A New Hope. Both.
Okay. All right.
Both is correct. But
it's not a bad list.
Yeah, it's making the list regardless of if we agree with the title. I still maintain Philosopher's Stone is the correct title, but but yeah, it's made the list. Now we get to the fun part where we get to rank them.
one of the toughest lists ever for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a banger.
But yeah, how we rank them is we vote on what we think should be at number 12 and go so on and so forth. But Dylan, did you have any honorable mentions?
I mean, of course, I was gonna bring up for my Star Wars film, Return of the Jedi, only because you still get all the themes. You get the main title, you get the Luke Binary Sunset theme, you get the Force theme, you get Leia's theme, you get Han and Leia's theme, you get Yoda's theme when he's dying, you get the Imperial March, and you get the amazing Luke and Leia sibling theme introduced in Return of the Jedi. You get the fun Ewok music with Return of the Jedi, and I love the dueling the score at the end with Vader and Luke. The score itself is what shows the transition from bad to good at the end, where Vader goes from evil to finally redeeming himself. The score itself is showing that, with it going from minor to major, and I think that's one of the greatest musical devices ever. Return of the Jedi is my favorite score, period. Ever, maybe. So that would have been my pick. But yeah, honorable mentions. Dear Basketball, the Kobe Bryant short, is all set to John Williams music. It's a short film, but it's a beautiful short film, especially now that we've lost Kobe Bryant. It's really emotional. I also had Born on the 4th of July as an honorable mention. Empire of the Sun is amazing. Home Alone 2 was on my list just because, it continues what was great about the first one. Lost World Jurassic Park is on my list in case we, for some reason, said no to the original. 7 Years in Tibet, which I don't think any of you have seen, but is one of the most beautiful scores ever. AI has a great score. Again, so many of these are Spielberg collabs. I love War Horse. I think it's even better than Private Ryan or Lincoln in terms of those patriotic scores. And we did say the Fableman. So yeah, those were my honorable mentions. Oh, and Witches of Eastwick is one of his kookiest scores.
Yes. That would have been my other wild card.
But Chad, was some honorable mentions that you had?
Not much. I mean, I also had Warhorse, but I didn't think that was actually going to get brought up, so I said yes to Saving Private Ryan because they're similar. And then Prisoner of Azkaban, stuff like that, pretty much. Kind of wish 2 Harry Potters could be on, but they can't.
But yeah, for me, I didn't really have a lot of on mentions. I think the score for the BFG is actually pretty good. I enjoy it.
Sweet.
I mean, I'm a defender of the BFG. I think it gets more hate than it deserves. And
never saw it, sadly.
A movie I kind of wish I brought up just to get a different director in here, but I think his score for the Book Thief is actually really good as well, which is another sort of Holocaust movie. But Jonathan, any honorable mentions?
Yeah, The Witches of Eastwick. That's a fun score. I love that score to death. That's a really good one. I have Born on the 4th of July. Presumed Innocent. That's an interesting score I like very much. A courtroom drama. Sabrina. That's a lovely score, and I like that one. Munich is an underrated one. The Poseidon Adventure. Minority Report. I like the one. And AI is not one that I like, but I think the score is one of I think it's one of his best. I think that while the conclusion of the movie is flawed and it doesn't quite work, I think his music at the end is really lovely. So that's it.
So do any scores that you have as honorable mentions?
I didn't have many, but there's one on here that I had that nobody talked about, and that's from Far and Away, the Tom Cruise Nicole Kidman movie. I think it's really good. Uses some great Irish themes throughout it. I think it's an underrated movie. Personally, I get why if some people don't like it, but I would say Far and Away is like it.
But some scores that people would up in the chat: Born on the 4th of July, The Accidental Tourist, Sleepers,
so many good ones.
Riches of Eastwick, Amistad, Memoirs of a Geisha.
That's the one you're referring to, huh? Amistad.
I don't like Amistad.
Presumed Innocent, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, The Poseidon Adventure, AI, The Terminal, Angela's Ashes,
bangers.
The River,
Yeah, the
Um,
Angelus Ashes score. I haven't seen the movie, but that was a good score.
No,
We haven't seen. Yeah.
and Brian, Sorcerer's Stone didn't make the list, but Philosopher's Stone did. Um,
Oh, Brian.
and then Stepmom, Black Sunday, and The Fury. I don't know much about
Oh,
those
Black
last.
Sunday. Yeah, that's an interesting score. Yeah,
Um,
I like that one.
but just to recap, what did make the list? We got Raiders of the Lost Ark, Superman the movie, E.T., Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Home Alone, Jaws, Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, The Fablemans, Catch Me If You Can, Saving Private Ryan, and Star Wars. Jonathan, what do you have for 12?
The Fablemans.
Soda, what do you have for 12?
I went with Fableman just because it's the only one on the list that I haven't seen at some point.
Dylan, what did you go for 12?
For a similar reason, because I've only listened to it, not seen it, I put Catch Me If You Can at 12.
Chad, what do you have for 12?
Saving Private Ryan.
I also went Saving Private Ryan.
Ooh.
So, Dylan, because we've got 2 people for Saving Private Ryan, 2 people for the Fablemans, which one are you going to go for 12?
I don't need to write it down, right?
No.
It's a personal bias, but I've got to go number 12, Saving Private Ryan. I'm sorry, y'all. I couldn't save him on this list.
Ooh.
Oh, ow, ouch.
Sorry, y'all.
Yikes. Ouch. He wasn't a good man to you, huh, Dylan?
You needed to earn this.
Nice. Well done.
Soda, what do you have for 11?
I'm going to stick with Fablemans again because I haven't seen it.
Dylan.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Catch Me If You Can for the same reason.
Chad.
Yeah, because it's so new, I'm okay with the Fablemans at 11.
I'm going E.T. Jonathan.
Ooh, that's
I actually thought it was
Fablemans.
on that one.
Fablemans.
But the Fablemans is going to be number 11.
The collective gut punch from Malcolm's nomination.
Hey, I'm glad it was still higher than Saving Private Ryan.
Ay, this is tough for me.
But Dylan, what do you have at 10?
A broken record, but Catch Me If You Can.
Chad.
Yeah, I'm similar. I'd say Catch Me If You Can. I think it's fine at 10.
I went E.T. Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm very happy that I made the list, but Catch Me.
And
If you can as well.
Catch Me If You Can.
The rest is so fucking hard.
After this one, for me, the rest are really hard.
Yeah, the top 9.
No, actually, after Catch Me, it's very, very, very hard.
Well, this is the last one where I haven't heard it as much as the other ones. So
Exactly.
Also, Brian, I said it earlier. Like, aside from a few tracks on the score, I don't really go back and listen to remember the entire score for E.T. Compared to some of the other ones that did make the list. Also, I know if I keep until it makes the list, I don't have to keep changing my board, so I've got time to watch banners.
You're gonna leave it for a while.
Chad, what do you have at 9?
I haven't seen the movie that much, so I said Schindler's List for this one.
I went E.T. Jonathan.
Has a great theme, but the rest of the score is like I don't remember as much. So Superman.
Soda.
I too went with Schindler's List just for the same reason. Out of all of these, it's the last of the ones I've
Dylan.
heard.
And I went with Superman, so we're tied again, Malcolm.
Comes to me. But yeah, going with the same logic as Jonathan did actually, it is going to be Superman.
That hurts.
I mean, it's one of those ones like it's got a really good theme, but aside from like probably the first flight scene, like the score itself, like isn't
I'd
that
say
memorable.
re-listen to it, but that's just my
Yeah, I do get it, but I also agree. Re-listen to it.
Well, I mean,
It
I
made the top
rewatched.
9 of like 100 scores, y'all. That's still good.
um,
It beat
look,
out 9 Star Wars movies.
I mean, I've rewatched the movie recently, and I still couldn't say it matched the other scores. Really sick in my head. But I'm sticking with VT. Jonathan.
Jurassic Park.
Oh,
Soda.
I'm sticking with Schindler's List.
Dylan.
I went Home Alone here.
Chad.
yeah, Schindler's List.
Oh man, that was my number 2.
It was also my number 2.
Number 4.
Jonathan, what do you have for 7?
You know what? I'm gonna change my board. I'm gonna change my answer here. You know what? I'll be respectful. I'll compromise. I'll say Home Alone.
Soda.
I also went with Home Alone.
Same.
Chad.
Well, I can't save Home Alone, unfortunately. It crushes me. But I put Raiders.
I was sticking with ET.
Oh,
I love how every single pick from like 9 on, at least someone is like, oh no, or ooh.
no, but I had to
They're all so
compromise. I had to
Yeah.
compromise.
They're all so good. So.
But Home Alone is going to be at 7.
Respectable.
I'm last, so I have time to think. So.
I don't know what.
Soda, what do you have for 6?
That's when I went with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Damn it.
Dylan.
Here's where I went Jurassic Park.
Chad.
Yeah, Jurassic Park is fine with me. They're all great.
I went ET and Jonathan.
Jurassic Park.
This is the one I would have pitched for number 1, motherfuckers.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's so low, but you know, so many good ones.
Okay. Ay.
I mean, once again, so low, it's 6 out of 100. But
We should have done a
Dylan,
top 20 for this. I have Raiders next.
Chad.
Yeah, I also have Raiders.
I was considering doing top 20, but I'm kind of glad because that could have gone much longer. It would have taken us a lot more longer.
A lot of yeses, though. A lot more yeses.
But I'm going to go eat. Jonathan.
Mr. Potter.
And Soda.
Beatrix Potter's son, Harry Potter.
Ooh, Malcolm break the tie.
Yeah, so what was it between like Harry
Raiders
Potter
and Harry Potter?
Oh yeah, it hurts me to do this, but one of those movies is my number 1s.
That's my number 2. It's my number 2. I know what he's gonna put.
Do you now?
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't see that.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
As I said, do you
I did
now?
not see that coming, actually.
That crushes
Now
me.
we know
but
you're
it's
number 1.
Still top 5. So
Well, I mean, you do, but
Oh man, you
at
ruined
this
my
point,
joke. I
I
was
don't
gonna
keep-
write Philosopher Sorcerers. I was gonna combine the two,
Wow.
but I don't have the opportunity to do that now.
what
Okay.
the fuck do I do?
I mean, I did state earlier that Prince of Azkaban is my favorite Harry Potter score, so that shouldn't come to too much of a surprise.
What number was Superman again? 9?
Yeah.
9.
Crazy, right?
But Chad, what do you have for 4?
Yeah, I'm still fine with the Raiders here.
I'm sticking VT. Jonathan.
E.T.
Soda.
Yeah, E.T. as well.
God damn it.
Um,
What the
Raiders.
fuck?
Well, there goes my number 1.
I know, right?
number one still.
I would love to see if we like just averaged our actual rankings together, how different it would be from like
4
this
is way
method.
too low for ET.
Number one is still on the
Elimination,
board.
Um, I don't know. 4's too high for ET, in my opinion. But now I've actually got to change my board. Yeah,
I'll be honest, this is the definitive top 4 wherever it ranks. To be honest.
yeah. So just we got Jaws, Raiders, and Star Wars left.
Jeez.
Like for definitive, I would have personally swapped out Jurassic for ET, but ET's a good one as well. Right?
I mean, it's not definitive because I disagree.
I was gonna say Schindler's is definitive too, and that was 8, and Superman's definitive to y'all. So
Yeah.
that's, I mean, our top
Home
9 I
Alone
think is
and
like
Harry
the
Potter are
9.
my definitive.
Our top 9 is like the 9, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree. I agree on that.
but anyway, so for 3, it's a good theme, but I think most of the score is sort of lost in the movie. I got Jaws. Jonathan.
It's like the closest 1, 2, 3 race, but Jaws.
Soda.
Jaws, same reason as Malcolm. Memorable theme, not really much else.
Raiders.
You guys are fucking ridiculous, Raiders.
But Jaws is going to be number
Yeah,
3.
it's okay. We're good. It's
Yeah.
a tough list. I mean, it's a tough ranking. They're all so good.
But moving now, we've got Raiders and Star Wars left. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. But instead of putting your number 2, we're going straight to number 1s, just in case people forgot.
Should have said anything. This would have been more interesting.
But Jonathan, what do you have as number 1?
They're all iconic, but I think the one on top on a very excellent pyramid of scores, Star Wars.
Soda.
For personal reasons, I went with Raiders.
Dylan.
Star Wars.
Chad.
Star Wars.
I went Raiders.
Oh, that would have been
Very
really
interesting. I'm the one who picked Star Wars as number 1, and I have the Raiders shirt on.
right.
I mean, it's really interesting, but
And it's one A, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised that it got the most votes because apparently it's not everyone's favorite Star Wars movie.
I mean, if our top 9 is all tied for first, then we have A1 through AI, which is funny because AI, A B C D E F G H I J K. I don't know.
so after this, I'm gonna leave for a D&D games. I was just telling them why I'm a little bit late, and then now they're arguing about scores. And my one buddy is like, I don't even remember what the Superman one sounds like. Can't have been that good. And then the one guy's like, and then the guy who said it doesn't remember Superman. He's like, there's gonna be poo in my chair when I get there, isn't there?
But I mean, I've said it's quite fitting that the 1 and 2 was literally the first and second movies that first and last movies that made our short list.
Is that ever the first time where the last movie that's brought up ends up being number 1? Is that the first time?
But just quickly, our top 12 John Williams scores we have at 12 we've got Saving Private Ryan. At 11 we've got The Fabelmans. At 10 we've got Catch Me If You Can. At 9 we've got Superman the Movie. At 8 we got Schindler's List. At 7 we got Home Alone. At 6 we got Jurassic Park. At 5 we got Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. At 4 we got E.T. At 3 we got Jaws. At 2 we got Star Wars. Wait, no, I got there around the one.
Wait a minute. Hold up. Hold up.
At 2 we got Raiders of the Lost Ark, and number 1 we got Star Wars. Yeah. I don't know. Everyone's talking. I think I was just typing it just without realizing what I did. But
that's a great list. Yeah.
But yeah. So we've got the 250th episode coming up. topic. The poll hasn't closed. I'm going to keep that open for at least another week because with the whole issue I had last week where we couldn't do the episode, it kind of left us. We had to take rom-coms and off the schedule for a bit. It will come back because there's always rom-coms getting released. There's always going to be an opportunity to do it. But next week, I decided it's going to be the topic, which was probably the second most one that everyone was interested in when I did the poll for this one. And so next week's topic is going to be top 12 movies that changed cinema. Some of these movies are bound to come up on that as well.
Star Wars is definitely going to be on there.
Dang.
Because there's
that's a challenge.
Star Wars.
This is a topic which was suggested to me by Austin Pierce Howe. We're talking about this a while ago, and I was like, you know what, I'll do that as a topic at some stage. But it's going to be fun.
Yeah, Malcolm, you should bring up Phantom Menace again. See how that goes.
I mean, there's a way. I mean, I kind of would have an argument for that. I just need to think about it. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to. But Jonathan, where can people find you online?
Well, if Twitter is still working, you can find me on Twitter at JohnCarroll4, but also you can find me on the other social media handles right here at Instagram, Cine.Caro. I'll maybe have another tournament coming very soon. I already posted my top 10 of the year so far already. And then you can find me on Letterboxd, Cine.Caro without the dot right there. And also I posted a YouTube video recently, basically my collection in the back there. And yeah, even though this was a long episode, this was worth it because we discussed the GOAT of composers here. So yeah, this was a great one.
And Twitter's only working if you haven't read 600 tweets.
Or if you bounce around between devices.
That's actually smart.
I found that out last night.
Smart.
But so we can be find you online.
It's soda_the_Saxman on Instagram and Twitter, and then over on the Northern Entertainment Group and Sodagan Wrestling.
I mean, I'm actually surprised no one's done a meme of Elon Musk going through the Mad Max cityscape, like just have Twitter, so like Elon Musk just going through this hellscape. But Dylan, where can we find you online?
Yeah, I mentioned right there, the Dill Pickle Movie Network. It's where I do all my shows. I do a show with Chad, Picture This, where we talk about Best Picture nominees. We go through every Best Picture nominee in the history of Best Picture nominees. We bounce around, though. We don't go in order. And I do lots of cool other shows there, do some reviews. This was a lot of fun. And remember, like, this is the GOAT. So, like, whether it's number 8, number 2, number 9, number 400, it's still John Williams. So, like, the order doesn't really matter. It's the 12 that made it are the 12 that we deem the best. So, it's like, you should all go listen to it if you're watching this. Like, go listen to all these scores because they're all great, no matter where it ranked. So I had a lot of fun. This was a great conversation.
Have you done Rocky yet? I'm asking, have you done Rocky yet on your show?
Oh, on Picture This, we have not. No.
Hit me up if you're for guests. My favorite film of all time.
There we go.
But Chad, we can people find you online.
We have done a lot of 70s though, but yeah, you check me over at Picture This. We have a lot of fun over there. We're actually going to get into more classics. So, we'll probably start doing that more. Like classics, I mean like 40s, 50s, stuff like that. But yeah, I have fun doing over there. I also appear in a lot of other of Dill's shows over there, which is a lot of fun. Just check out that whole channel because it's pretty great. Drafts, all that stuff. Anything movies, he's probably doing it. But yeah, also check out the Nerd Entertainment Network where we have a show called Welcome to Primetime that I do with my buddy Hunter and my wife Carrie, and we mostly just talk horror, but sometimes we'll play fun games. We'll rank episodes of Buffy because it's my favorite show of all time, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And then because Hunter's a newbie watching it, and we're kind of veterans, we've seen it a bunch, so it's fun to discuss that with him. But we're also recently started doing brackets for horror movies. So we've been going through each decade, and we've started adding more people to it. So we've added Steve Mesa, John Marr, and Austin Pez Howell. So it's like 6 of us now trying to figure out what is the best horror film of each decade. So we've gone through the 2020s, 2010s, and half of the 2000s. I guess I could just spoil what one. No, I won't do it. Watch those videos, because that's more fun. And then we'll probably do like a mega ranking at some point. But check that out. Just check out my letterbox, I think, because I've been kind of reworking my whole blog situation and trying to figure out what I'm actually going to do next. Trying to shorten up my reviews and stuff like that. I don't know. I hope to get back into the movie Battleground at some point. But other than that, I love doing Rankum. So thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, and you can find me on Tate Productions host Rankum every Sunday night. Next week is Top 12 Movies That Changed Cinema. Over on Full Metal, I host Full Metal Random. That is currently on break. That's probably going to start coming back in August, potentially. But I also been doing the full Metal singles, been working getting Full Metal singles back off the ground. We've been doing a tournament, and it's going to start dropping this week with the title match between Joseph Olivas and David Nishimoto. Got a few episodes in the can. We've got some getting recorded. Chad was in one of those movies episodes that's going to drop shortly. I think I've got his is either going to be the second or third one that's going to be released. And I'm going to make this announcement now because it is probably the right place to do it, because I'm going to bring back a show that I did initially start doing on Take 3, and I'm going to bring that back. But it's going to be a little bit different to the way I did it in the past, because I'm going to be taking inspiration from tournament fights, which you could also find me on. But I'm going to bring back bracketeering. I used to do it, do a video announcing the bracket and all that, and then just do the polls on the page. But this time, I'm going to actually do it as an actual full show. I'm going to try and figure out a way to keep it relatively short, because I know with brackets, depending on who you get on, it can get really long. But
like this
yeah, I mean, Brian can correct me, but Brian Nussbaum will probably correct me. But this is probably the longest episode of Rankum.
I don't think it's the longest one. There's one other one.
Honestly, I don't think we've had one that's gone over 3 hours. I don't think we've had one that's gone over 3 hours.
Epics. I think
Still
Epics.
can't reach Avatar 2.
Oh, right.
We'll
But
get there, Cameron, someday.
Anyway, the first topic for the first episode of Bracketeering, it's either going to draw. I'm going to bring it. I'll make it a big announcement on the page when it's coming out. I think it's going to be the next week or the week after. I'm going to do it. But the first 3 episodes, I'm going to take the top 128 movies that have appeared the most times on Rankum and put them into a randomized seeding tournament. So it's going to be a 3-part series. Like the first 2 parts is going to be 64. Then the last part will be 32. The 16 from the first episode, the 16 from the second episode will go up in a championship round, so to speak. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And once again, I'll make a big announcement on the page when it's going to drop, because I'm going to need people on there as well. But until next time, before we kind of break, okay. Brian was saying the longest one was one of the MCU topics. But yeah, it's probably the second longest. But I'm getting into broadcast now because there's no way I can randomly speak long enough. So I'm just going to go out on this.